Chapter 543, Calamity. Chapter 543, Calamity. Mount Heaven Whistle. Inside a gloomy cave in the center of the mountain, countless dark green dead souls hung on the walls, covering the entire surface. A pond of corpses situated in the middle of the cave where bodies piled up. Dark green blood was constantly oozing. Many blocks of meat were stuck into the corpse refining pond, sucking the nutrition from the dead bodies. They kept enlarging continually. Dark green dead souls were floating around the pond, emitting their cold, evil aura as if they were guarding it. Mount Heaven Whistle was a small and poor mountain among almost 1,000 mountains of the Dead Soul Mountain range. The heaven and earth aura here was faint, and no warrior stayed on this mountain to cultivate. Inside some caves in Mount Heaven Whistle, green light columns as big as tree trunks were shrinking, and a large amount of yin qi was overflowing from them. Flows of this kind of an evil aura poured into the big cave in the center of the mountain one by one. Dead souls inside the cave were spurting out a dark green, viscous liquid onto the meat chunks. This liquid then turned into layers of energy, getting absorbed into the meat chunks. Time passed quietly. Crack. The cracking sound of an egg hatching rose. The membrane covering the meat chunk cracked, then fell on the ground piece by piece. A green, short-limbed creature which was as tall as a 10-year-old child emerged from the meat chunk. Its skin was wrinkled like an ugly toad. Its 3 pupils had a deep, cold, dark green hue, and its look was sinister to the extreme. It was a humanoid creature, with a pointy head and no ears. There were many holes on its cheeks, and its nostrils moved as if it were breathing the evil aura of this cave. Dead souls in the cave suddenly got excited. They led that short-limbed creature towards the dead soul's evil lair. Hundreds of dead souls joined hands and fiercely pushed that creature into the dead soul's evil lair inside the cave. Swoosh! The first body of the dead soul that was refined from the corpse refining pond had been pushed into the dead soul's evil lair. A sinister green halo expanded from the evil lair as its center, rippling out. The size of the evil lair doubled in just a blink. From outside the evil lair, it looked like numerous dark green tentacles were piercing into the dead soul body, transmitting the evil energy just like a drip feed. The dead soul body grew quickly. Immense green light shot out from the holes in its cheeks, as it gradually gained the size of an adult. Deep inside the dead soul's evil lair, a flow of green light zoomed over from a distant area, hitting the body instantly. The bizarre, cold eyes of the dead soul body became more evilly intimidating after the dead soul had entered it. A gloomy evil aura shot out from the evil lair. Crack crack. Crispy cracking sounds echoed from the evil lair. A dead soul body was occupied. It then struggled out of the evil lair and descended in the cave of Mount Heaven Whistle. Hundreds of dead souls surrounded the evil lair and cheered. Their sounds were sharp, their whistles seeming like thousands of ghosts crying miserably. An aura of resentment soared to the sky. Inside Mount Heaven Whistle, blocks of meat enlarged fast. Soon, another dead soul body was born. The first dead soul with its body got out of the evil lair, then walked to the pond in the cave. Countless green tentacles extended from its waist like worms, and pierced into the newborn dead soul bodies. Evil energy quickly poured into the newborn bodies, enlarging them. Not long afterward, excited high-level dead souls floating around all stormed over at the same time, choosing a body and entering their new hosts. Dead Soul Mountain Range. It had been half a month, but not many warriors and alchemists left the place because of the Dead Soul event. They decided to stay and cultivate. However, some of them started to disappear into thin air. During half a month, hundreds of warriors, alchemists, and blacksmiths seemed to evaporate. Some people had taken risks intruding the Dead Soul Mountain Range to hunt the dead souls and harvest the treasures from the dead souls' evil lairs. They all disappeared one by one. Have you heard the news of Zhong Yu and his team? They were operating in the east of Mount Heaven Whistle. It's been 7 days, and they haven't returned yet. I heard that not only Zhong Yu, but also a group of members of the Radiant God cult led by a First Sky of Spirit Realm expert went missing. No one can contact them. My master told me that many of the alchemists and blacksmiths living in some mountains have gone missing. A group of warriors was discussing quietly in a shop in the Spirit Potion Valley with frightened faces. The same discussions were repeated in some corners of the Precious Tool Valley and the Spirit Potion Valley. Recently, warriors, alchemists, and blacksmiths had gone missing continually. The others couldn't contact them using the Soundstone, and no one found them either. The anomaly of the Dead Soul Mountain Range became more terrible at this moment. Some people who had intended to wait and watch the change in silence started to leave the place at their fastest speed. Some of the ones who decided to leave vanished even before they could get out of the Dead Soul Mountain Range. The news of their missing status came to the Precious Tool Valley and the Spirit Potion Valley, which made the ones who hadn't left yet scared, giving up the thought of running away in their heads. The situation became grimmer day by day. Li Zhengrong, the blacksmiths of the Precious Tool Valley, together with the experts from the Pure Land, the Radiant God Cult, and the Devil Valley discussed daily to identify the news of new missing people. These days, according to the statistics of the Spirit Hall and Tool Hall, at least 700 warriors went missing. Warriors living in the two valleys all felt insecure. Li Zhengrong was so busy, and was even having a serious headache. When he went out searching for the dead souls, he didn't dare to go alone, and often departed with hotshots of the Tool Hall. It was unknown why when his group came out searching in the regions of the Dead Soul Mountain Range, they usually didn't find anything abnormal. Even a single dead soul was hard to see. This doesn't fit the common sense. Before the dead souls had the anomaly, they could easily meet the dead souls near the area of the evil lairs. It was impossible that they couldn't find even a single dead soul for several days. After the dead souls had some big changes, according to normal sense, this should be the time the dead souls operated more crowdedly, and slaughter everywhere. After several failed searching missions, Li Zhengrong and his group became more panic-stricken. People still kept going missing mysteriously. This situation hadn't stopped yet. Gradually, Li Zhengrong recognized a fact he found it hard to accept. It wasn't true that the dead souls had stopped all of their operations. They were still slaughtering everywhere else. The reason why they hadn't met them was that the dead souls had sensed their presence and missions beforehand to stay away before they reached the area. Also, this meant the dead souls hadn't gathered enough power. They understood that they didn't have sufficient force to battle with the human warriors. So, they were hiding and waiting for the chance to snatch other groups of human warriors. After he'd confirmed this finding, Li Zhengrong and the blacksmiths of the Tool Hall started to feel scared, as their worries about the dead souls swelled up in their hearts. The Spirit Potion Valley and the Precious Tool Valley were sealed up. To prevent more warriors from going missing when they went out, the Tool Hall and the Spirit Hall had announced the common curfew. Whoever was staying in the Spirit Potion Valley and the Precious Tool Valley had to stay inside, as they weren't allowed to go out of the valleys. Once a warrior's soul was eroded, he would become a newly dead soul, and be a part of the dead soul's formidable force. To prevent the dead souls from being stronger, Li Zhengrong and his group had to set up this poor plan. They were now guarding the Precious Tool Valley and the Spirit Potion Valley, as they were waiting for a face-to-face battle with the dead souls. In fact, even if they didn't set up the curfew, no one had such big guts to go out. When the news of the searching teams going missing mysteriously was leaked, the warriors living in the two valleys finally recognized the dangerous situation. Everybody feared death. When they found out that the experts stronger than them had disappeared after leaving no trace, they became more well-behaved. At the same time, the Spirit Hall and the Tool Hall had sent the message to the warriors cultivating in the surrounding mountains, asking them to come to the valley quickly. The ones they couldn't contact, they couldn't do anything more for them. At the same time, after the Pure Land, the Radiant God Cult, and the Devil Valley sent their elders to the site, they couldn't help but pay more attention to the moves of the Dead Soul Mountain Range tightly. Some said that true God Realm warriors of these three factions had gradually come back from their secluding cultivation. They would hurry to the Dead Soul Mountain Range soon. All of a sudden, the Dead Soul Mountain Range had become the focus of the entire divine Great Land. After the ancient factions got the information of the anomaly in the Dead Soul Mountain Range, they all used their ways to collect the news from there. The Ice Emperor City. Bing Qing Tong, Shuangzhu Zhu, Leng Dan Qing, and Han Kui had been cultivating in the bone-chilling ice chamber. When they woke up from their cultivation, Bing Qing Tong received the news from the General Union. Her smile ceased. "Sister, what's up?" Han Kui let out a light laughter. Her beautiful eyes brightened, as the cold aura ameliorated her shining smile with an outstanding bearing. There's a big change in the Dead Soul Mountain range. According to the General Union, it's a big calamity. Bing Ching Tong narrated the news she received in detail. After the bad experience with Yu Li Ming and Ning Du Quan, the bond between the four sisters had restored. They had no grudges now. They had spent time together to cultivate in the ice chamber. Both their realms and ice jade technique were improving fast. At the moment, Bing Ching Tong seemed to have entered the peak of the spirit realm. Han Kui had a significant improvement as well. Furthermore, Shuang Yuzhu and Lung Danqing now could urge their ice jade technique more fluently. After they had a notable increase in their realms, the General Union showed them a better attitude, much better than before. When they received the news of the divine Great Land, they would immediately send to the women here. Ning Du Quan actually wanted to trouble them more. But when he knew that the women's realms had been much improved, he couldn't help but give up his attempt, washing away the thought of declaring war. The Ice Emperor city had changed. Didn't that bastard go to the Dead Soul Mountain range? With his speed, he should be there already. What should we do? Han Kui was scared. She shot up from her seat, her face worried. Shuang Yuzhu and Lung Danqing slammed their brows together. We should go and look for him. Lung Danqing stood up, her face agitated. No, Bing Ching Tong shook her head. The situation of the Dead Soul Mountain range's much complicated now. We can't get there on time. With his capacity, Shi Yang can protect himself. We shouldn't worry about him that much. We'd better keep an eye on the information. I think he would be okay. Anyways, even Ning Du Quan had no way to catch him. If it isn't a true God Realm warrior, I think he will be alright. Hearing Bing Ching Tong say so, Shuang Yuzhu and Lung Danqing contemplated, then nodded. However, they still wore anxious faces. Precious Tool Valley. Lin Yaqi approached a house which was specialized in offering quiet chambers for warriors to cultivate. She didn't keep the smiling face as usual, frowning while quietly walking to a gravitational room. She called with a low tone, "Shi Yang, open up. I have something I want to tell you. Let me in. Quickly." Chapter 544, Provoking. Chapter 544, Provoking. Shi Yang's face was thin and pale. There was no light in his eyes when he woke up in the gravitational chamber. He had only one bottle of soul-restoring pellet left from the 3 bottles he had received. However, his understanding of the teleportation formation had just crossed the threshold. At this speed, it wouldn't take long for him to comprehend the subtle features of the teleportation formation thoroughly. The rapid draining of soul consciousness every time he was in that strange world scared him. Although he had the soul-restoring pellet, every time he got in that world, it took him 3 days to recover his soul consciousness. Seeing that he was about to use up the soul-restoring pellet, he started to think about the supply one more time. At that moment, the stony door of the gravitational chamber was banged loudly. Lin Yaqi's anxious voice still arose. He pulled himself together, got up, and then opened the door to let her in. He frowned. "What do you come here for?" "You're here, indeed." Lin Yaqi exhaled, then observed the gravitation room. "Then," she said, "the Dead Soul Mountain range's really dangerous at this moment. I'm worried that you didn't know the situation clearly and have left the valley. I am here to notify you." Then, Lin Yaqi told him in detail the situation of the Dead Soul Mountain range. When he heard that more and more warriors went missing every day, Shi Yang was scared. While he was unconscious, the situation of the Dead Soul Mountain range had turned bad. "I will not leave for the time being. Don't worry. Oh yeah, do you have the pellets to restore soul consciousness? If you have, give me some. We can deal the price." Shi Yang poured out some soul-restoring pellet from the storage ring and took them in all. While he was sensing his soul consciousness being restored a bit, his face looked a bit satisfied. "If you don't leave the valley, why do you need the pellets?" Lin Yaqi's eyes were suspicious. She scrutinized him from left to right, then asked all of a sudden, "Are you practicing some techniques that depend on the soul consciousness?" "No. I know it. Only the 7 ancient factions know how to cultivate the techniques using soul consciousness. Even my teacher doesn't know these techniques. These techniques are too scarce. The ones who know them are as rare as phoenix feather or unicorn horn. If you know how to cultivate your soul consciousness, you don't need many pellets to restore it. Shi Yang's eyes lit up. The technique to cultivate the soul consciousness? The soul consciousness was the most basic treasure trove. A strong soul consciousness gave way to a strong host soul. The stronger the soul consciousness was, the more sensitive the sensing was. To the alchemists and the blacksmiths, the soul consciousness was an important matter. On their way practicing refining medicine and forging weapons, if their soul consciousness was strong and keen enough, when they refined things, they could control the aura of heaven and earth better, and the formation or the spell they carved on their products would be more exquisite. Their speed was also strengthened overall. Cultivating the soul consciousness could give the host soul a big space. The soul consciousness was really magical. The more it was refined, the better it would be when the warrior urged his power. When Shi Yang was in the quiet cloudland and endless sea, he had never heard about a technique specialized in cultivating the soul consciousness. Their soul consciousness could only grow after they had broken through a new realm. Hearing this from Lin Yaqi, he was overjoyed. To understand the mysteries of the teleportation formation in the blacksmith secrets of success thoroughly, he had to consume his soul consciousness continually. If he had the technique to cultivate the soul consciousness, it wouldn't take much of his effort when comprehending the teleportation formation. At the same time, refining and condensing the essence of the soul consciousness also had a big impact on his martial arts. In the divine Great Land, do only the 7 ancient factions have the techniques to cultivate the soul consciousness? Shi Yang was moved. He didn't conceal, asking directly, "Does anyone sell this kind of techniques?" No, Lin Yaqi shook her head. Besides the 7 ancient factions, there are some mysterious experts who know how to cultivate the soul consciousness. However, finding them is harder than finding the 7 ancient factions. You shouldn't think about it much. Shi Yang didn't speak, but was contacting the ice-cold flame. The ice-cold flame had had several masters, and each one of them was a genius. They were the peak realm experts, or the blacksmith at a far-reaching level. These kinds of characters could know how to train their soul consciousness hopefully. When the ice-cold flame was integrated fully with its master, although it would be limited, once the master died, it could gain all the hidden and mysterious memories of its master. Shi Yang thought that perhaps the ice-cold flame knew something. No. If I knew it, I would have told you already the first time you tried to access the blacksmith secrets of success. My previous masters had only focused on their powers. They didn't put much effort into training soul consciousness and the host soul. So, I can't help you, the ice-cold flame replied shortly. Shi Yang cut the connection with the flame, his face disappointed. He closed his eyes to contemplate for a while, then spoke to Lin Yaqi, "Okay. So, do you have the pellets or medicines that can recover the soul consciousness?" "I have the original soul pellet. It's much more precious than your soul-restoring pellet. I can give you 2 bottles. Each bottle has 50 pills. 1 original soul pellet is more effective than 20 soul-restoring pellets." Lin Yaqi chuckled, explaining the differences between the 2 pellets. The soul-restoring pellet can only restore the consumed soul consciousness. However, not only can my original soul pellet recover the soul consciousness fast, but also help it increase. My teacher's an alchemist. Even though he doesn't know how to train the soul consciousness, he has used the pellets to improve his soul consciousness. Of course, pellets are just medicines, they aren't specialized techniques. The improvement made by the pellets is limited. Normally, a warrior can use only 3 bottles of the original soul pellet to strengthen his soul consciousness. After that, even if he uses more pellets, he can't make it progress further. At that time, it can only be used as a pellet to restore the consumed soul consciousness. Of course, its recovering speed is much faster than the soul-restoring pellets. Shi Yang's eyes brightened. "How many essence chi crystals do you want?" "I don't need the essence chi crystals." Lin Yaqi smiled like a little fox, squinting her eyes. "You help me with this stuff, and I'll give you 2 bottles for free." "What stuff?" Shi Yang was quite alert. "I have to say that although I need the original soul pellet, I won't waste a lot of my strength for you. Help me teach someone a lesson. As long as you can satisfy me, besides these 2 bottles, I can find 2 more for you. How does it sound?
Who?
Some jerks of the Pure Land, the Radiant God Cult, and the Devil Valley. Lin Yue gritted her teeth, her eyes sparkling with resentment. These years, those assholes have often bullied me. Although I'm a warrior, my master has grounded me and asked me to study the spiritual formations for refining medicine. I don't have enough strength, so I'm not their opponent. Pure Land, Radiant God Cult, and Devil Valley were the 3 forces with their names spreading throughout the entire Divine Great Land. Normal, people felt scared whenever they heard these names. In the whole Divine Great Land, the powers of the 7 ancient factions had been stood firm for tens of thousands of years. With their profound history, people found it hard to estimate their internal resources. A generation of successors nurtured by the 7 ancient factions, no matter it was in terms of the techniques, martial arts, experience, or treasures, they were always on top. These young people of the ancient faction were more powerful than the leaders of some small sects. And, they were all arrogant, swaggering around the divine great land with no fear in their hearts. You want me to offend these 3 forces at the same time? Shi Yang beamed a forced smile as he suddenly had a headache. If you don't dare, I'll keep my original soul pellets, snorted Lin Yue. Recently, it's like finding the needle in a haystack when you want to find the restoring soul medicine in the Spirit Potion Valley. Unless you snatch from someone, don't think about using a higher price to buy the medicines. Of course, I know that you have the guts to mess up with other people. Perhaps you will use force to take them. But if you do so, you'll be the common enemy of the whole Spirit Potion Valley and the Precious Tool Valley. Currently, people in the Dead Soul Mountain Range were flustered. Under the arrangement of the Spirit Hall and the Tool Hall, many warriors had gathered. If someone started to slaughter the warriors, of course, it would enrage the hotshots here. At the moment, besides the sacred-level alchemists and blacksmiths in the 2 valleys, there were Spirit Realm elders from the Pure Land, the Radiant God Cult, and the Devil Valley staying in the Spirit Potion Valley and the Precious Tool Valley. Even if Shi Yang were more confident, provoking the patience of all warriors in the 2 valleys was an unwise move. You think about it, Lin Yue smiled, looking at him without any hurry. Cold light flashed across Shi Yang's eyes. He kept silent for a long while, then lifted his head to talk to her. What cultivation base do they have? Around the peak of Sky Realm, I assume. Not much different from yours, Lin Yue smiled at him tenderly. Little Yang, I know you're at the peak of Sky Realm, too. But your real competence is more tremendous than theirs. I believe that those jerks from the Pure Land, the Radiant God Cult, and the Devil Valley aren't your match. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to provoke the freaks at Spirit Realm. Hee. Deal. Shi Yang suddenly shot up from this seat, extending one hand to the girl. First, give me 2 bottles of the original soul pellet. Wait until I restore my soul consciousness. I'm going there to help you. Deal. Lin Yue was frank enough, and immediately gave him 2 green bottles. Use warm water to take the pellet. Once it gets in your stomach, you should urge the medicinal efficacy to enter your soul consciousness. Then, you'll know what to do next. I'm waiting for you in the gravitational room. 10 pellets are enough to supplement all of your consumed soul consciousness. Shi Yang received the bottle, taking out 10 pills. Then, he took out a jade china bowl from the storage ring. A fire sparked from his fingertip and shortly, the water in the jade bowl became boiling hot. Shi Yang swallowed the original soul pellets with hot water. He then sat down in front of Lin Yue and started his recovery. Where's that little girl? Outside a manor, How High of the Devil Valley asked while caressing a dragon-shaped jade pendant, his eyes cold, raking around the place. She got in. Emerald jade silky fibers shot out from Ming Mai's slender fingers. They flew one round around the manor, which helped her confirm the information. The medicine she sold me last time had poison in it. After I took it, I almost fell into bedevilment. How High gritted his teeth. That girl's eviler than warriors cultivating demonic methods like us. If I didn't react fast, not to mention breaking through the new realm, my cultivation base would have decreased. That damn little girl, even if Li Zhengrong protects her, I still have to give her a lesson. You deserve that. Ming Mai laughed cheerily. Her graceful body swayed on the spot, with green waves lingering on her body. Well, I had quietly sent my signals to you, but you didn't care. You only wanted to tease her. If you didn't want her, why would she always sells medicine blended with poison to you? Harumph. I'm willing to be poisoned rather than messing up with you. How Hai's face became colder. I don't want to die without a known reason. Then, How Hai took a deep breath, entering the manner Lin Yaqi had gotten in. Chapter 545. Cousin? Chapter 545. Cousin? The original soul pellet was much more effective than the soul-restoring pellet indeed. After he swallowed 10 pills, they turned into a warm current, flowing toward his sea of consciousness. The sea of consciousness seemed like it was watered with a fluid of growth, being restored rapidly. The consumed soul consciousness had been supplemented quickly under the magical effect of this warm current. When using the soul-restoring pellet to recover the consumed soul consciousness, it required more than half a day. However, the original soul pellet needed only 15 minutes. His soul consciousness was recovered. After sensing it, Shi Yang could confirm that if he had more original soul pellets, after his soul consciousness was restored, it would enlarge a little bit more. However, Lin Yaqi didn't give him more time. As soon as his soul consciousness had been restored, Lin Yaqi immediately screamed out, calling him to get out of the gravitational room and take revenge for her. Xin Yang was in high spirits, narrowing his eyes. Cold light sparkled in his pupils, while he curled his lips. No need to bother, they've come for you already. Lin Yaqi's smile froze as she snorted. That quick? Seems like they always keep an eye on me. Those jerks do have bad thoughts. Indeed, none of them are nice. Shi Yang stood up, facing Lin Yaqi. He then took off his dirty greenish-grey warrior clothes and changed into a pure black one. Adjusting his collar, Shi Yang kicked the door open and strode out. Outside the room, How Hai and Ming Mai stood there with their electric-sharped eyes and deep, gloomy aura. Third sky of Sky Realm. Shi Yang's eyes lit up. Just at first glance, he recognized their cultivation base precisely. How Hai and Ming Mai were wearing silvery grey armor and scarlet armor respectively. Their precious armors covered half of their bodies, and light sparkled shiningly from their arms and knees. Vaguely, people could see energy fluctuations from these spots. There were some sorts of strange and evil formations carved on their armors, which could gather the heaven and earth chi. Although the two stood still, heaven and earth chi in the surroundings gathered proactively towards them, entering the formation on their armors and getting absorbed into their bodies. This supported them to condense the essence chi at any minute. They both wore storage rings and another 5-colored ring on their fingers. These rings shimmered with tender, translucent halo, which indicated that they weren't just normal items. Worth their identity, the successors of the ancient factions. Shi Yang complimented them in his head. Their clothing, accessories, the storage rings, and the rings on their arms were most likely all priceless items. They should have some special effects that could enhance their strength while fighting. The third sky of Sky Realm cultivation base of these two people was full of the aura of the ancient era. Their essence chi was pure, which was obviously higher than the ordinary third sky of Sky Realm warriors. While his eyes were raking through How Hai and Ming Mai, the other two were observing him too. A jet-black warrior cloth covered a muscular body with a cold attitude. His long black hair draped over his shoulders. His eyes were like 2 stars shining and oppressing people's minds. How Hai and Ming Mai were shaken inside, but still kept their faces stiff. They could feel the brutal aura exuded from Shi Yang while his breath was filled with clear murderous intention. Not a soft persimmon. Just at first glance, How Hai and Ming Mai understood something. They then could see the fear deep in each other's eyes. The murderous aura couldn't be gained through cultivation. A warrior could only obtain it from fatal fights and slaughter, in which he had to kill many other warriors. If others sensed them carefully, they could see the murderous aura on How Hai and Ming Mai too. However, it was much less than Shi Yang's. Who was this man? How Hai and Ming Mai exchanged looks, their hearts filled with surprise while they were searching for the identity of young and outstanding men in the divine great land in their heads. Names of prominent young men crossed their minds fast. Shaking his head, How Hai realized that none of the outstanding young men in the divine great land matched with the bearing Shi Yang had. Lin Yaqi let out a light chuckle. She slowly strolled out of the gravitation room, throwing a glance at How Hai. Her beautiful eyes showed her disdain towards the young man. She snorted and said impatiently, "You come here again. For what?" How Hai was enraged. A cold light slowly crossed his phoenix eyes that could scare people. "The pellet you sold me contained an extreme poison. I almost fell in bewilderment. You tell me what I come for?" Lin Yaqi didn't change her face. On the contrary, she giggled. "When I gave it to you, didn't I remind you that I didn't refine it? I remember I told you that already. Remembering it or not, it's your responsibility." An interesting smile hung on Ming Mai's face as she was retreating her graceful body, keeping a distance with How Hai. Then, she spoke mildly, "Yaqi Mai, I'm here just to watch the fun. You don't need to be bothered with me." Lin Yaqi's face was cold. She snorted and muttered something under her breath, as if she was cursing someone else. "Turns out I can't reason with you." How Hai wasn't angry. He seemed to be calmer, nodded as he said, "Give me back the materials I've given you to refine pellets. Or, give me the real pellets. Otherwise, I won't let this slip away. Regarding me getting poisoned, as long as you apologize, I won't trouble you more to give old Li face." In your dreams, Lin Yaqi cracked a mocking smile, her face full of disdain. How Hai's countenance became tenser. He took a deep breath. The ring on his arm had many black fibers which looked like seaweed in the deep ocean, extending and winding around both of his arms. Those black fibers were moving with some mysterious trajectory, forming tiny but dense demonic patterns on his arms. After the patterns were formed, they started to absorb the essence qi in his body. The black, fine fibers forming the patterns became more exquisite after receiving the essence qi. Now, they looked like the shiny long black hair. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Strange sounds echoed from his armor, as energy fluctuations expanded everywhere. Heaven and earth qi was suddenly restrained. The overflowing rich heaven and earth aura seemed to be separated by an invisible barrier. Not only the space surrounding them, but also the heaven and earth aura surrounding Shi Yang and Lin Yaqi were cut off. A space-twisting energy appeared next to How Hai. Space then started to crumple as if it were about to collapse, giving people a strange feeling of shrinking. Trace of grudge sparkled in Lin Yaqi's eyes. She stepped backward quietly until she reached the door of the gravitation room. Then, she smiled, pointing at Shi Yang. "This is my cousin. He said that, as long as he's here, no one can bully me anymore." Cousin? How Hai and Ming Mai were suspicious. Since when did she have a cousin? As they were all the young talents of the divine great land, it wasn't the first time How Hai and Ming Mai visited the Dead Soul mountain range, or the first time they had contacted Lin Yaqi. They knew that Li Zhengrong's two disciples were both orphans, whom Li Zhengrong had been taken care since they were little. How could an orphan have a cousin all of a sudden? Well, nowadays, cousins are things we can't clarify. The one I love, I could call him cousin too. Ha ha. Ming Mai beamed a tender smile, looking at Shi Yang and Lin Yaqi with dark thoughts showing on her face. How Hai got it, as his face turned colder. He liked Lin Yaqi, and Ming Mai knew that well. He was still suspicious, but after Ming Mai stirred up the matter, he got it immediately. *TCH. Lin Yaqi glared at Ming Mai with hostility as she was cursing the girl in her head. Actually, she had mouthed the word, but she didn't make a sound. Lin Yaqi wasn't an idiot. She understood that Ming Mai burned it up on purpose. The relationship between Lin Yaqi and How Hai used to be a bit harmonious. If Ming Mai hadn't added things at the wrong timing, which provoked How Hai's mood, How Hai wouldn't have misbehaved with her. It would not accelerate to a violent dispute like right now. The hatred she had for Ming Mai was deeper than what she felt for How Hai. If it weren't that Ming Mai was more dangerous than How Hai, she would have taken action against that woman earlier. "Cousin, they want to bully me. Lin Yaqi called out with her soft voice and innocent appearance. She pointed at Ming Mai and How Hai. These two aren't good people. They harm other people daily. Well, especially the one who always pours oil into fire. I think she regrets that she can't kill some girls who are more beautiful than her. Well, you know, that sort of people are the most disgusting ones. Ming Mai's pupils shrank. She curled her lips and snorted. Are you talking about me? Women always cared about their appearances, especially pretty women. Lin Yaqi's words, of course, got the other girl on her nerves. Nah, how dare I talk about you? Everybody knows that you are the most beautiful woman. Ming Mai, yeah, right, you are so beautiful, Lin Yaqi mocked with a cold face. Ming Mai let out a light chuckle, but her eyes shimmered with cold light. She was a bit gloomy as she was looking at the other girl, seeming to be thoroughly provoked. Do you want to interfere in others' business? Although How Hai was enraged, he still had his clear mind. He could recognize that Shi Yang wasn't just an ordinary man. I will not interfere in others' business, smiled Shi Yang. How Hai relaxed his stiff face, while Lin Yaqi got angry, rolling her eyes at him. Ming Mai found it interesting, chuckling and looking at him. It's my cousin's business, how I can consider it other people's businesses? Shi Yang smiled faintly. He stood upright and curled his lips, his manners as sharp as a knife when he shouted, "Stop babbling. If you want to fight, move your **s. I don't have much time for you." In that fraction of time, the indignant feature on Lin Yaqi's face vanished. She smiled cheerily until her body shook. I knew it. My cousin likes me the most. Shi Yang felt his hair raising as he beamed a forced smile in his heart. However, he still appeared cold as usual. How Hai was enraged. Cold light sparked like electric currents in his eyes. The aura on him became more murderous, but his face was getting calmer. Brilliant hotshot, Shi Yang exclaimed in his head. It was the first time he showed his serious countenance. Now he knew that the young generation nurtured by the 7 ancient factions were really tough to deal with. During a fight, the more one got angry, the more chances one had to fall into the disadvantaged circumstances. When the hotshots fought, they competed each other in aura, mood, experience, and intelligence. During a battle, if the opponent could control the mood, one's aura would change accordingly, which would affect the whole picture of the battle. When a warrior had rage affecting his mind, he couldn't react with clarity. Losing the mind meant losing the grasp of the whole situation. Right before the fight, How Hai could restore his sound mind, which was what a typical hotshot would do. I don't care if you're her cousin or not. Frankly speaking, you irritate me. If I don't feel good, you shouldn't expect to feel good either. How Hai gave him a faint smile, his face calm and relaxed. However, his aura became more dangerous. Replying to How Hai, 3 words came from Shi Yang's side, "Come beat me." All of a sudden, How Hai moved like a thunderbolt tearing the sky. Strong, determined, evil, and brutal. Chapter 546, One Strike to Rout. Chapter 546, One Strike to Rout. How Hai moved slightly. The demonic patterns on his arms shot out countless black lightning bolts, looking extremely fearsome. The smell of blood exuded from his armor, shining with a cold light that could make people shiver. Those beams of light poured into his palms as strong as a rising rainbow. 2 spheres of black energy were spinning in his palms, as big as a grinder. They looked malicious and brutal, full of a murderous aura. Demon electricity was activated. This was a killing strike of How Hai. If everything was smooth enough, he could use one strike to rout the enemy. Ming Mai smiled brightly, but her eyes were as cold as ice, gazing at Shi Yang while waiting to see him be wounded badly. How Hai had been practicing this strike for really long time. He had learned it from watching the Ghost Bloody dance in the Ghost Bloody cave in the Devil Valley. When added with the demon electric power from the demonic patterns, all the elders in the Devil Valley had to admire this strike of his. Ming Mai knew the power of this strike. She understood well that if How Hai weren't enraged completely, he would never use it in the first attack. Let's see what do you do to counter. Ming Mai sneered inside as she was thinking about what to do to provoke Lin Yaqi after Shi Yang was defeated. Lin Yaqi was also worried, her face anxious. She didn't expect that How High would use the killing strike straight up like that. Now, she regretted it that she didn't tell Shi Yang clearly how dangerous How High was. If she had told him, Shi Yang could have used all of his strength to counter right at the beginning. She thought Shi Yang would find it hard to parry the opponent now. Lin Yaqi had heard Yi Changfeng bragging about Shi Yang's skills many times, but she had never seen it with her own eyes. Thus, she still kept a suspicious attitude towards the man. Anyhow, Shi Yang came from the endless sea. She understood well that martial arts and endowment of the warriors there were far behind that of the warriors in the divine Great Land. How High came from the Devil Valley, the ruthless fellow that successfully walked out of the 36 terminating caves in the Devil Valley. Warriors in the Devil Valley had to compete with each other ruthlessly. The strong would win, and the weak had to accept their defeat. Disciples who could walk out of the Devil Valley had to step on countless bloody bodies after they had perceived some kinds of evil powers in 36 terminating caves. It was no exception that all disciples who could escape the Devil Valley became the objects to receive the intensive training from the Devil Valley. And, in the future, they would become the key persons of the Devil Valley, too. The 36 terminating caves of the Devil Valley hid danger at every step. Bodies and bones of losers filled the place, while some sorts of evil powers hovered everywhere. Under such circumstances, if a warrior wanted to survive, he had to deal with something much more dangerous than fighting with the experts. It could be said that the area was hell where devils dwelled. How High was among the warriors who had successfully proven himself. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Demon electric currents shot like shuttles moving back and forth, weaving a shield without the smallest split that could cover both the sky and earth. The shield was stretching from above. Lin Yaqi's heart felt like being hung tightly. However, Shi Yang stood still like a 10,000-years-old mountain. His eyes were cold and brutal, indifferently watching the intertwining demon electric currents slowly descending like a bunch of snakes from the sky. The corner of How High's mouth hung a cold smile. That man was done. If the torrential demon electric currents covered him entirely, among the same level warriors, no one could successfully escape this strike. They could only be eroded bit by bit. How High was confident. However, at this moment, numerous palm leaf fan imprints appeared in the air. Shi Yang's figure faded, and then divided. Shortly, there were 10 Shi Yang, each of them looking cold and ruthless, their eyes fierce with torrential fighting will. Phantom change. Thousand-handed change. Countless hand imprints as big as a small mountain piled up in the void rumblingly attacking every corner. Boom boom boom. They then saw the demon electric currents How High had released being smashed instantly. Numerous black electric currents were destroyed with a smack. 10 Shi Yang piled up on each other, moving fast. The hand imprints became thicker in the sky, just like a shower of leaves covering the whole space. Rumble rumble rumble. Cripsy explosions reverberated, as the space between the two of them exploded with an ear-splitting thunder. A burning smell spread out in the air. The ground under Shi Yang's feet cracked, as green stones scattered here and there. The training courts around were slightly shaking, while the tiles on their roofs flew randomly. Shortly, the phantoms in the sky retreated. The hand imprints faded out like vanishing shadows until they disappeared completely. Dust settled. The chaotic situation calmed down, and the field revealed little by little. Oh! Ming Mai covered her mouth, her visage frightened. Her eyes bulged as if they were about to fall off her sockets. Lin Yaqi was struck. She burst out laughing as she was overjoyed. Surrounded by debris, Shi Yang stood still at his spot as if he had never moved. His face was as cold as usual. How High was covered in blood, trembling and about to collapse. His face was gloomy and sinister. 2 trickles of dark blood dripped down on his face that he couldn't control. It seemed like he got beaten by many people. His clothes were pieces of rags, and his armor was broken. The demon patterns on his arms dimmed, no more light sparkled, or any torrential energy that surged. Bruises of hand imprints appeared on his chest, arms, and abdomen, which left deep concaves on his body. How High trembled, and then fell. The vicious light in his eyes dimmed as he fainted. Ming Mai changed her visage, flew over and grabbed him. She lifted her head, fear crossing her eyes briefly before disappearing. She put How High on her shoulder and then moved swiftly, running away from the scene. Warriors who were cultivating in the training courts near there craned their necks from the doors and watched the scene with astonishment. Lin Yaqi wore a smiling face as if she had won a big prize. She kept giggling as she was happier than ever before. 4 bottles of the original soul pellet. I'll help you deal with 4 people. Here's the first one. Shi Yang frowned, throwing a glance at Lin Yaqi as he notified the girl. He didn't mind the surrounding warriors watching them, getting back to his gravitational room. Lin Yaqi arched the end of her brows and smiled until her eyes squinted, looking at the general direction where Ming Mai had left. After a while, she walked into the gravitational room with satisfaction. Spirit Potion Valley. In a building exclusively for the people from the Devil Valley, Feng Biao was toying with the original demon bead in his hands while explaining the characteristics of the dead souls. Feng Biao was a 3rd sky of Spirit Realm warrior, an elder of the Devil Valley in the Divine Great Land. He was also a famous brutal character. Lining in front of him were 5 young people. They were all wearing gorgeous attires, but their aura were gloomy and eccentric. Their faces were stubborn as they were listening to the older man impatiently. These 5 young people were the hotshots of the Devil Valley who came out from the 36 terminating caves. 4 of them were at the peak of Sky Realm, while the 5th one was a handsome young man who surprisingly was at the 1st sky of Spirit Realm. Lai Feng was the most famous young expert of the Devil Valley. He had reached the Spirit Realm when he was 30 years old. Since he was 10 years old, he had been training in the 36 terminating caves, killing many people. He had a pair of silver eyes and grey hair. Everybody was afraid of him. Although Feng Biao was the elder of the Devil Valley, Lai Feng apparently didn't respect him. His face showed that he didn't care. He was the devil kind who had a greater chance to grasp the top power of the Devil Valley in the future. Although his position was low, he was extremely ominous. Young people in his generation only submitted to him. If they didn't obey his order, it would be much more terrible than going against their teacher. His authority stemmed from the 36 terminating caves. Each generation of brilliant warriors who had been cultivated in the terminating caves in the Devil Valley together with him and could get out of that evil place with him all submitted to him. If they didn't follow him, he would keep them in the caves forever. Lai Feng leaned against the wall. It seemed like he was about to doze off at any minute, his face idle. Feng Biao clenched his jaw. While he was lecturing about the dead soul's characteristics, Lai Feng obviously didn't pay attention to him, which irritated him a lot. Although he didn't like it, Feng Biao didn't dare to show his real feelings. Lai Feng was too brutal and violent. Also, he was a devil kind. In the coming time, he would surely become the lord of the Devil Valley. If he created a grudge with Lai Feng now, his future wouldn't be so bright. He understood Lai Feng's characteristics pretty well. Thus, even if he felt more irritated, he wouldn't dare to expose it. Bang! The door was banged open. Feng Biao got enraged, shouting with his gloomy face. "What are you doing?" Ming Mai carried How High stormed into the room, crying with her hoarse voice, "Elder, please check How High. I'm afraid he can't endure any longer. That's why I had to rush." Both young and old men of the Devil Valley in the room changed their faces. "Who did that?" Feng Biao asked with a ferocious face as he instantly jumped to How High and checked his situation. He immediately put many pellets into his mouth and urgently helped him to swallow them. Then, he shouted coldly, "Wounded badly. If you didn't arrive on time, even if he could recover, he would still have an ailment that would be hard to treat thoroughly." "Who did that?" Ming Mai didn't dare to conceal. She hurried to tell them everything in detail. "1-on-1. Normal battle. How High got screwed in just one strike." Feng Biao's face became darkened. He tried to press down his anger, asking through his gritted teeth. Ming Mai nodded. "Who's willing to take back the face of our Devil Valley?" Feng Biao took a deep breath, asking with a cold face. "Since he dared to provoke us, no matter where he comes from, we need to use blood to teach him." Feng Biao raked through the people present in the room. Lai Feng pouted his lips, indicating that he wasn't interested in this case. "Cheng Ji, you're 1 grade stronger than How High. You shall go. As Feng Biao saw Lai Feng's expression, he knew that the other wasn't just joking. So, he had to take a step back and ask the other to take this mission. Cheng Ji, a peak sky of Sky Realm, had trained in the 36 terminating caves with Hao Hai. He had visited 12's caves alone and got out wounded badly. He was 1 grade stronger than Hao Hai, and had gained more than what Hao Hai got from the terminating caves. In general, his competence was 1 level higher than Hao Hai's. Rubbing his nose, Cheng Ji knew that he couldn't dodge it. Well, Elder has assigned me, so I don't dare to go against you. I'm going now. Then, Cheng Ji didn't linger, strolling away towards the precious Tool Valley. He's just a kid at the Sky Realm. I'm not interested in him. Well, I want to meet him when he reaches the Spirit Realm. Lai Feng's face was cold. He walked out of the room and said leisurely, I'm tired. I'm going to take rest. Call me if you need me. Yeah, if nothing's important, don't call me. My Demogan technique's about to have a breakthrough. Feng Biao hated him and feared him at the same time. He hated Lai Feng's attitude, and was afraid of his understanding and tremendous potential. His Demogan technique was about to break through again. How long had it been? How did he train himself? Was he human? Feng Biao was startled. He was a hot-tempered person, but he didn't dare to vent out his anger in front of Lai Feng. He tried to press down his anger. Waiting until Lai Feng was gone, he threw an indignant look at the others and scolded. Why don't you try your best? Look at Lai Feng, his Demogan technique is about to break through again. How about you guys? What are you waiting for? Move your *s. Train yourself more. The group of people who got blamed felt like they were amnested, fleeing away. Only Hao Hai was left lying on the ground. That brat was so brutal. The Spirit Hall and the Tool Hall put a curfew on fighting, and he almost made Hao Hai bleed to death. Who is he after all? When all the people left the room, Feng Biao muttered to himself with a darkened face. Chapter 547, Comprehend. Chapter 547, Comprehend. His hollow soul was floating erratically in the blacksmith secrets of success. The teleportation formation appeared with many large circles linked together. The outermost was made of crystal stone. In the spaces between the circles appeared the light condensed from some admixture, which could transmit the energy from the crystal stone. A circle of crystal stone paired up with a circle of supporting light. There were 66 circles, including 33 circles of crystal stones and 33 circles of auxiliary light that guided the energy of the crystal stones. In the center of the circles was a triangular sacrificial altar made of ethereal crystals, which had a mysterious, complicated formation. That formation was the essential key to the teleportation formation. This formation had many nodes and rays connected with each other to gather the power of the ethereal crystal at one spot. Rings of energy from the crystal stone around would urge and lead the energy from the ethereal crystal to create the instant space change, which was the teleportation effect. There weren't many different arrangements between the 66 circles of crystal stones and auxiliary light. He only needed to pay attention to their locations, the size of the crystal stone to be inlaid, and the condensing characteristics of the rings of auxiliary light. The most difficult arrangement was the sacrificial altar, which was made of the ethereal crystal. To be exact, the complicated thing was the formation carved on the altar. Countless nodes of the formation looked like the starry night. Each node held the energy of the ethereal crystal, and there needed to be a precise distance between two nodes. However, the distances between the nodes weren't similar. Even if he wanted to learn by heart, it would cost much of his effort. The nodes were connected to each other using rays, which were the power of the soul consciousness. So, he had to urge his soul consciousness to join the nodes together. The hollow soul sank into the middle of the node to probe the ancient technique of the teleportation formation. Shi Yang was concentrating quietly to perceive the mysterious space of this formation. His soul consciousness drained rapidly. Phew. Shi Yang exhaled. When half of his soul consciousness had been consumed, Shi Yang opened his eyes. The teleportation formation was wide-ranging and profound. While comprehending the formation, He vaguely felt that his host soul would sometimes have a resonance with the heaven and earth. His realm had a sign of breaking through again. He was at the peak of Sky Realm, and his pure essence chi in his body had been accumulated sufficiently a long time ago. Now, all he needed was a flash of recognition, and then he could make a big step further, entering the spirit realm. He got stuck at this pass. This time, while he was comprehending the teleportation formation, his realm was increased a little bit. Although this growth was slow, he could feel it earnestly. He had a feeling that when he could finally perceive the mysteries of the teleportation formation, it would be the moment he entered the spirit realm. Shi Yang took out 5 original soul pellets, closing his eyes to adjust his breathing. While his soul consciousness was being recovered, his mind was still tense, lingering at the previous location to learn and feel the mysterious features of the formation, quietly digging to its deepest layer. He had his own experience regarding the subtle, mysterious characteristics of the teleport formation. After each time he had accessed the blacksmith's secrets of success, while his soul consciousness was consumed rapidly, his realm was also increasing fast. The teleportation formation was some sort of an Upanishad that used the true meaning of the most mysterious power of the space. In the sky realm, breaking through a new realm would require the complete understanding of the powers of the earth and firmament. It didn't matter what type, but what mattered was the level of the comprehension. In the divine Great Land, warriors at the sky realm could use different kinds of Upanishad to break through their sky realm. However, using the comprehension of the space power from the teleportation formation to break to the spirit realm was a precedent that no one had ever heard about. From sky realm to spirit realm, using the comprehension of the power, he could break through instantly with a wide-ranged growth. At that time, in the spirit realm, he could use the essence of the power's deep meaning at a profound level. In other words, if he used the mysteries of the teleportation formation to break through to spirit realm, shortly, his understanding of space power would rocket to a high level. In spirit realm, space power could become a source of his powers. Perhaps it could be the main force, which had more room to grow further. Space power and time power, these two kinds of powers were always the rarest and the most difficult to master. Even in the divine Great Land, no one had ever heard that anyone could control these two powers. Blacksmiths had studied teleportation formation, but they didn't focus on increasing powers. When a blacksmith entered the spirit realm from sky realm, the power comprehension they would pay attention to was the deep meaning of fire. No matter they were blacksmiths or alchemists, fire was the most important partner in the future. Understanding the power of fire could determine the grade of the fiery flame in their bodies. The deeper understanding of fire powers they had, the stronger the flame in their body could become, which would help them refine higher graded weapons and medicine. Fire was the foundation of blacksmiths and alchemists. Even if the space power was miraculous, it wasn't much valuable to these refiners. Someone who knew the miraculous features of the space power but didn't master the teleportation formation must need a very particular situation to perceive this sort of power. This made many warriors who wanted to use the space power to improve furthermore from the sky realm find it impossible to enter that door. Thus, the possibilities that some peculiars could use the space power to enter the spirit realm were really rare. Anyway, Shi Yang was absolutely of a strange kind. The original soul pellet was worth the name of the sacred medicine that could restore the soul consciousness. Not long after that, his consumed soul consciousness had been almost fully recovered. Lin Yaqi held a smile on her face. She stood opposite to him, feeling so bored she had to watch things from here and there while toying with a refining formation in her hands. She often checked him. Having restored his sound mind, light sparked in his eyes strangely. Shi Yang woke up, throwing a glance at her leisurely. "Your trouble comes again." Lin Yaqi wasn't scared but quite happy at the same time. She shot up from her seat while giggling. "So good. I was so bored here. I was just hating it that they didn't come earlier." Shi Yang was surprised. He adjusted his clothes and then got up, pushing the stone door open. Cheng Ji was holding a narrow blue sword, which had the cloudy ghost and blood ghost coiled around the handle. These two strange creatures melted into the sword, revealing a deep blue of the ocean. Neat and eccentric, yin aura and murderous aura piled up, exuding an evil, bloodthirsty breath. Cheng Ji and How High were similar. They were both at the peak of Sky Realm. However, Chang Ji had better powers and treasures. Cheng Ji. Lin Yaqi rolled her eyes while snarling, I don't think I have any grudge against you, right? Chang Ji had a thin and long face. His eyes weren't big, and he was wearing white clothes. He wasn't considered good-looking, but his bearing was tender, which was much different from the others who came from the Devil Valley. Sorry. Elder Feng got angry, so he sent me here. Chang Ji held his fist, beaming a forced smile as if he had no other choice. I don't dare to not follow my teacher's order. Miss Lin, please forgive me. Hey brother, I'm here to discuss only. I don't want to risk my life with you. Don't treat me like you treated How High. Don't beat me to near death. That Feng Biao old fogey, he does like to hide his shortcomings. Lin Yaqi snorted, then turned to Shi Yang. Cousin, How High's Feng Biao's disciple. He has a deep relationship with him. Now that How High got hurt badly, of course, Feng Biao won't let it slip away. However, Cheng Ji isn't Feng Biao's disciple. He's just a Zhou. You have to control. Don't let him not be able to go back. Shi Yang's brows convulsed while he kept silent. He had used only one strike to beat How High, which was a lucky defeat. He was good at using wild energy impact. When his own power added up to the negative power, it was like finding the way to die if a warrior at the same level wanted to compete with him on using power. The strike How High used was to pile up energy, using the strongest power to kill him instantly as fast as thunder and lightning. Bumping into him, How High's method was the worst choice. Using power to resist power, under the circumstances that Shi Yang had used the formidable thousand-hand change, his power from his body, and the negative power, along with his essence chi bursting out at the same time, How High had no way to counter it. He got hurt severely in that instant. It could only say that his fortune was really bad. Obviously, Chang Ji wasn't the same type of warrior as How High. Chang Ji's blue ghost sword had the cloudy ghost and the blood ghost. He could control the bloodthirsty and vicious aura, but he appeared as an elegant gentleman. People who didn't know him could think that this guy came from the Pure Land. His entire bearing gave people a vague feeling that they couldn't probe this man's identity. This man knew how to hide his breath. Possibly, he could drift and move swiftly. Facing this type of an opponent, the gravitational field was the best option. While Shi Yang kept silent, he had inaudibly built 3 gravitational fields that normal people couldn't see, arranging them on his sides and behind his back, leaving his front unshielded. If Chang Ji dashed towards him from the front, he wouldn't meet the gravitation field. In face-to-face fighting, Shi Yang wasn't afraid of anyone. If he used some kinds of swift-moving techniques and attacked him from 2 sides or from the back, it would suit Shi Yang the most. Once he got into the gravitation field, if he hesitated for just a fraction of time, Shi Yang would give Chang Ji a defeat that was even worse than How High's. Please be merciful, Chang Ji held his fist. When his words faded, he disappeared. Shi Yang's face changed. Clenching his fists, his punches were like a mountain as they violently and arrogantly hit the ground. Boom. Rock chips and dust scattered. The ground now got a deep fist concave, which was eye-catching. A low shout arose from underground. Swoosh. A sword shimmered with gloomy blue light by the cloudy ghost, blood ghost, and a murderous aura slashed the ground, crossing the void. A cold blue light stabbed towards Shi Yang's chest. PFFF. A bloody flower bloomed on Shi Yang's chest as big as a thumb while blood gushed out like a stream. Lin Yaqi was frightened, covering her mouth in fear. Too fast. As soon as Chang Ji disappeared, no one knew how he got underground that fast, which made all the gravitation fields Shi Yang had created fail. The sword light carried together with the yin qi and the blood aura that could pierce through any strong defense invincibly. People just saw the light flash and Shi Yang got hit. The wound had numerous beams of yin qi on its cut. The blood aura was like a spider fiber, eroding his vessels and tendons quickly. An aching and numb feeling spread out in his entire body. Poisonous aura. Shi Yang's face became darker. Chang Ji looked tender, but he turned out to be so vicious. This guy was good at ambushing with his hiding talent. He could kill people instantly within one strike, and even his weapons had poison on them. Chang Ji appeared friendly just to hide his instant kill strike. Shi Yang took a deep breath. He had gotten angry now. If he didn't have the petrification martial spirit, his chest would be bored under this attack. At that time, even if he didn't die, he would be hurt badly. Basically, Chang Ji didn't come here to discuss anything. This was using all deeds to ambush and kill him. Friend, you're evil enough. I got my lesson indeed. Shi Yang quickly gathered himself. His eyes flashed with cold light as he arched his brows. Come here, mate. Chapter 548, The Second Battle. Chapter 548, The Second Battle. Ming Mai arrived again. Under a tree shade next to the gravitation chamber, she stood there with a contented, smiling face. She was so excited. Cheng Ji didn't fail her, indeed. He was worth the name of the warrior who understood ambushing the best in this generation. With only one strike, he had wounded Shi Yang severely. This would surely save the face of the Devil Valley. Warriors who were staying in the training courts near there showed up in silence. They were watching the fight there with great interest. Cheng Ji was the young expert of the new generation in the Devil Valley. Many people here knew him. They were boisterously discussing with each other and guessing when Shi Yang would lose his resistance. Lin Yaqi was confused. She shouted, Cheng Ji is good at sneaking. Don't fall into his trap. Shi Yang curled his lips. His muscular body gradually floated until he was around 30 meters from the ground. He cocked his head to look down. Cheng Ji could hide himself underground. This variable was beyond his estimation, which made him pay a big price. If he didn't have a strong body, he would have lost within one strike. The Devil Valley was always the Devil Valley. The ones who came from the 7 old factions weren't soft persimmons. The easy defeat of How High made him underestimate the others. However, through Cheng his counterattack, he understood that he should never underrate the 7 ancient factions, which had been standing firmly in the divine Great Land for 10,000 years. Cheng Ji didn't hurry to attack him again as he was hiding underground. Releasing his soul consciousness, Shi Yang started to search underground, but he couldn't locate Cheng Ji's position. This man was truly a stealth assassin who was more dangerous than How High. Even under Shi Yang's sensing, he still could hide. Although his soul consciousness wasn't completely pure, the way he used to utilize his soul consciousness was much profound than ordinary warriors. This was thanks to the soul Upanishads of the demonic Sound clan. At that abandoned area, he had learned many special techniques using soul consciousness from the soul Upanishads of the demonic Sound clan. The soul-searching technique was the secret soul technique of the demonic Sound clan. Using the soul consciousness as a net, it was extended to every direction, then slowly retreated to see any creatures in the coverage range of the soul consciousness. However, his soul-searching technique couldn't locate Cheng Ji. This meant this man had something special to hide his soul consciousness. Since he couldn't find Cheng Ji, he didn't hurry to take action, just waiting for Cheng Ji to show himself. Hotshots who were good at hiding his aura would not linger at one spot, they would always move. He understood that Cheng Ji wouldn't stop, but keep changing his location constantly while gathering energy to prepare for a deadlier strike. His waiting. Indeed. Gloomy, dark shadows emerged one by one from the ground, as if they were sprouting, while a cold, bloodthirsty aura flooded the area instantly. Cloudy Ghost and Blood Ghost. Among the devil breeds that were nurtured in the 36 terminating caves of the Devil Valley, the Yin Soul Thorn belonged to the Cloudy Ghost, and the blood-sucking remembrance was a skill of the Blood Ghost. They were both soul attack skills. Creatures without a tangible body were always good at using soul. The Cloudy Ghost and the Blood Ghost weren't an exception. At that moment, a Cloudy Ghost and a Blood Ghost floated up, drifting in the void towards Shi Yang. Yin Soul Thorn and blood-sucking remembrance from the Cloudy Ghosts and Blood Ghosts shot out towards his sea of consciousness all of a sudden in an attempt to disorder it instantly. What Cheng Ji needed was only an opportunity. Once Shi Yang's sea of consciousness became chaotic because of the Yin Soul Thorn and the blood-sucking remembrance, Cheng Ji would attack Shi Yang with irresistible forces. Each Cloudy Ghost and Blood Ghost was like the ghost shadow. They were vague, floating everywhere. Smell of blood and yin aura filled the whole space. Shi Yang shivered, while his eyes showed that he was struggling. It's time. An electric current cracked the ground, thrusting towards Shi Yang. It was as fast and robust as a sharp knife. The cloudy ghosts and the blood ghosts swarmed over like a rising tide, covering Shi Yang, tying his soul down. Cheng Ji's attack didn't stop, jabbing into Shi Yang's chest in just a blink. Lin Yue felt like her heart was hung by a thread. She knew the situation was bad. At that instant, Shi Yang's dull pupils suddenly radiated with a glorious light, his face bright and shining. Flames like lotuses bloomed in the air dazzlingly and beautifully. However, they were scorching hot. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Each cloudy ghost and blood ghost turned into smoke. After a wind blew by, they vanished into thin air. Shi Yang cracked a smile which was as sharp as a blade, cold and dangerous. Boom. The death and life seals were released, piling up. Death intent domain expanded, as the trees and grass in the manor started to shrivel and die. Cold light dots exploded like fireworks, flying everywhere like shattered stars in the sky. The death and life seals had many cold light dots. Under the death intent domain, the destructive power slaughtered and erased everything that was covered under that cold light. Cheng Ji was exposed. He was holding the blue demon's sword, his face frightened as he was trying to retreat. 3 gravitational fields combined into one, and activated at once, covering Cheng Ji entirely. Chaotic essence chi. Cheng Ji seemed to see ghosts in daylight. His silhouette flickered in midair like a dying candle. Shwoosh. A ray entered the gravitational field, intruding Cheng Ji's body. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Crack, crack, crack. Cripsy explosions echoed continuously inside Cheng Ji's body, just like the fireworks getting ignited. Inside the gravitational field, Cheng Ji was rolling like a ball, his body covered in blood. Thud. Cheng Ji fell. His eyes were disordered, as he didn't have even a bit of energy. Half of the bones in his body were broken, and he was dying. Ming Mai was filled with fear. The second one. Light flashed as Shi Yang reappeared. He frowned at Lin Yue and got back to the gravitational chamber. Lin Yue dropped her jaw as she was struck, unable to understand anything. Cheng Ji was defeated like that. It was simply a bewildering defeat. No one knew what had happened. They only thought that Cheng Ji had made a big mistake during the battle and had lost the control of his body. Only Cheng Ji knew that he didn't make any mistake, but was dragged into a gravitation field that snatched the control of his body. However, he couldn't talk as he had fainted. Ming Mai fell into a deep fear. Seeing Shi Yang disappear into the room, she cried in panic, rolled her eyes at Lin Yue and then carried Cheng Ji on her back, flying away. Cheng Ji was hurt badly, even worse than Hao Hai. Hao Hai had wounds on his skin and flesh, while Cheng Ji had his tendons and bones broken, which was really hard to treat. Spirit Potion Valley. When Ming Mai dragged the dying Cheng Ji towards Feng Biao was complete enraged. Cheng Ji's wounds were so severe that even if he could recover his bones, it would leave sequelae. Later on, it would be strenuous for him to reach the higher realms. He didn't have the immortal martial spirit after all. Feng Biao's face became more ferocious after sensing the young man for a while. Listening to Ming Mai narrating, he suddenly shouted, "Lai Feng." Lai Feng walked in with a darkened face. He was about to burst out, but when he glared at Cheng Ji, then exclaimed in fear, "Do you need me to explain furthermore?" Feng Biao grunted. Lai Feng nodded, answered him quietly, "I got it." The relationship between him and Cheng Ji was really good. When they were in the 36 terminating caves, Cheng Ji was his most persistent little brother. He was also a rare good friend. Even if he didn't care about the prestige of the Devil Valley, since they were friends, he couldn't just stand and stare. "I want him to die." Feng Biao clenched his jaw like a ferocious beast. "You don't need to bother with the curfew by the Spirit Hall and Tool Hall. This time, I want to see his body. If any bad consequences happen, I will bear them all." Lai Feng's red tongue moistened his lips. His narrow eyes were like those of a poisonous snake. "Relax. I'll drag his body here." After saying that, Lai Feng disappeared like a gust of wind. Ming Mai was struck. chasing after him with astonishment. "Let's see how you die this time," Ming Mai thought hostilely. In front of the gravitational room, more than 10 warriors of the Precious Tool Valley were discussing quietly while looking at the room with an admiring and respectful face. The battle between Shi Yang and Cheng Ji had spread out all over the Precious Tool Valley as fast as a thunderbolt. Many warriors who had nothing to do got stirred up hearing this news. They gathered here with great interest. Everyone knew that the Devil Valley was tough. First, Shi Yang had beaten up How High, then he smashed Cheng Ji's bones. Such malicious deeds were crueler than even the Devil Valleys. The ones who had the guts to provoke the Devil Valley's authority were all from the 7 ancient factions. However, even if he were from the 7 ancient factions, he shouldn't do such horrendous deeds. Who was he? Why did he dare to do so? Those people couldn't help but think about that vision. All wore an excited face, waiting for the next event to happen. Everyone knew that the Devil Valley wouldn't let things slip away like that. They also knew that there was a devil kind called Lai Feng among the young hotshots of the Devil Valley who came here this time. Lai Feng's strength and brutal characteristics were famous in the entire divine Great Land. In the north of the Precious Tool Valley, at the exclusive area of the Radiant God Cult, a line of good-looking talents was listening to Elder Xuemu lecturing about the features of the dead souls. All of a sudden, a surprised scream came from outside. Xuemu frowned, threw a glance there while his soul consciousness was moving, listening attentively. A young man hurt Cheng Ji and How High badly. His deed was brutal. "We'll have a good show, it seems." Xuemu talked to Yu Le in front of him, his face terrified. "You take your brothers and sisters to check it out. Li Feng will show up, I assume. You fought with Lai Feng that year without a final result. I think you should take this opportunity and check out his current competence." Eula was surprised. He nodded, then took some young hotshots of the Radiant God Cult out of the place. The manor in the south of the Spirit Potion Valley. Elder Ya Lai of the Pure Land acted the same with Xuemu as he was assigning the pride of the Pure Land, Luo Yu. "What's his name?" Luo Yu was wearing a dark purple robe. His face moved. "I know all the experts of the ancient factions. He could hurt Cheng Ji and How High, so he shouldn't be just an anonymous. I have never heard of him before. Maybe he's new." Ya Lai shook his head, indicating that he didn't know the man, either. Luo Yu was surprised, then nodded and said, "I will go there and take a look." Some hotshots of the Pure Land's new generation followed him. News spread quickly. Not long after that, all warriors in the Precious Tool Valley and the Spirit Potion Valley received this buzzing news. They started to pack the space in front of Shi Yang's gravitational chamber. Hundreds of warriors were like a cloud of grasshoppers, packing the space in front of the gravitational room. The big war was ready to set off. Chapter 549, If it's a must fight, then fight. Chapter 549, If it's a must fight, then fight. Gravitational chamber. Lin Yaqi was worried, talking with a soft tone. "Leave the Precious Tool Valley. You can't stay here." How High failed, and then Cheng Ji failed. Lai Feng will take action for sure. Shi Yang indifferently sat down cross-legged. He slightly opened his eyes and then frowned. "Lai Feng? Who's he?" "The strongest of this generation in the Devil Valley. He's at the first sky of Spirit Realm. People call him Devil Kind. This man's so evil and insane that if he feels irritated, he will slaughter massively," Lin Yaqi said with a solemn face. "Ah," nodded Shi Yang, "let him come." After he had reached the third sky of Sky Realm, Shi Yang's confidence was abundant. Although he wasn't too arrogant, it helped him not to be afraid of the Spirit Realm warriors, especially those who were just one realm higher than him. The Spirit Realm and the Sky Realm were one whole realm away from each other. The gap between the two realms was like a deep and vast canal to ordinary warriors. But that didn't include him. Being a man who had 3 different types of martial spirits, a strong physique, and the ability to urge the negative energy, he had many tricks. Even if he had to battle with Spirit Realm warriors, he wasn't too afraid. As the strange creatures like the War Devil, the King of Demonic Insects, the Ice-Cold Flame, the Earth Flame and the Holy Spirit God were with him, he didn't need to worry about his life. Thus, He got just a little bit anxious. The opponent just had the spirit realm cultivation base. Would he have the power that goes against the natural order? Lin Yaqi was quite discontented with his manners. She kept muttering and begging him to leave, her face worried. Where to go? Shi Yang couldn't help but smile. At this moment, the Dead Soul Mountain Range's a dangerous place. Once I leave the Spirit Potion Valley and the Precious Tool Valley, and enter the mountain range which is full of dead souls, I will die sooner. Although Lai Feng's excellent, will he dare to kill me? He does dare. Lin Yaqi was hurried. I told you, he's a madman. The curfew of the Precious Tool Valley and the Spirit Potion Valley can prevent the others, but not him. Shi Yang was stunned. He hesitated for a while and then spoke up with an icy cold visage, if he dares, I can always show him how dangerous I am. Shi Yang wasn't afraid of the Devil Valley. The 7 ancient factions were strong but they didn't have any ties with him. He was alone in this vast divine great land. He just needed to find a secret place and hide there. Even if the power of the 7 factions spread out in every corner, they couldn't track him down. He had no worries, no burdens, or anything that could tie him down. At most, he could just leave. Lin Yaqi had advised him for a long time without a positive result. Of course, she got indignant and shouted. She jumped over, attempting to drag him out of the place, forcing him to leave. However, at this moment, Shi Yang's eyes brightened. He dodged Lin Yaqi and pushed her away. Lin Yaqi was enraged, her face anxious. The one you're talking about comes. Outside the gravitational chamber, many warriors staying in the Precious Tool Valley and the Spirit Potion Valley had gathered here, hundreds of them. Most of them were the disciples of the Pure Land in the Sky Realm. Some of them had Spirit Realm cultivation base. However, those experts at the Spirit Realm were all old. They were hiding in the crowd, watching the event. There were 3 exceptions. Lai Feng, Yu Le, and Luo Yu. They were the new expert generation of the Devil Valley, the Radiant God Cult, and the Pure Land. Under the intensive care and numerous cultivating materials, plus their innate talents, they had reached the spirit realm at ease. God-given rare talents. These 3 were famous around the divine Great Land. No matter the previous generations or the young and good-looking new generation, they all knew these 3. Yu Le and Luo Yu brought their sisters and brothers standing in front of the gravitation chamber with great interest on their faces. Lai Feng had arrived earlier. He didn't hurry, and just sat down cross-legged outside the room, closing his eyes and waiting for something. Ming Mai stood behind him, her eyes sharp but radiant as she was scanning the room. She didn't know what Lai Feng was waiting for. A long time afterward, Lai Feng slowly got up, his leisured good-looking appearance swaying as he rose his voice. My friend in there, have you relaxed sufficiently? I'm Lai Feng of the Devil Valley. I think you know I'm here already. I don't want to talk much. I come here this time to see your defeat. As long as you admit your defeat, saying that you surrender after seeing me, Lai Feng, I won't make this bigger. Turns out he was waiting for that brat to recover. Everybody was amazed. Yu Le and Luo Yu seemed to disdain him, shaking their heads strangely as if they thought that Lai Feng was just hypocritical. He was a spirit realm warrior and now he wanted to trouble a sky realm warrior. Even if he waited until he recovered, what was that for? Could the gap between the 2 realms be made up in just a breath adjustment? Lai Feng comes, indeed. Lin Yaqi was frightened. Shi Yang stood up and calmly kicked the door open. Then, he came into the sight of hundreds of people. Surrender after seeing you? Shi Yang felt amused as he shook his head. You are not qualified. Lai Feng's eyes became colder while a cold sneer appeared on his mouth. Interesting. Well, seems I was too much concerned, right? Friend, you do have guts. So, that's how you could hurt How Hai and Cheng Ji. Aren't you here to take back the face of the Devil Valley? Shi Yang arched his brows. Why you are babbling that much? If you want to fight, come. Why you're so lengthy? Everyone was stunned. Extremely arrogant. An anonymous kid in the Sky Realm could be that arrogant in front of Lai Feng? He didn't know Lai Feng's reputation, perhaps? No. Lin Yaqi screamed ear-splittingly. She flew to the front of Lai Feng and explained. "He's a friend of mine. He has a good connection with my teacher. He has beaten Hao Hai and Cheng Ji because they had provoked us initially. You're a spirit realm warrior. Even if you can defeat him, it isn't a proud triumph. I don't care what the others think about me." Lai Feng's face was sinister. He was smiling, but his eyes were as cold as an ice chamber. "What I mind is this man's attitude to me." Boom. A strong gust rolled Lin Yaqi up like a big rope, tying and dragging her out of the battle range. "You're that frank, so I shouldn't be wordy." Lai Feng laughed loudly, pulling Lin Yaqi away as he strode to Shiyang. The hurricane ripped through, causing havoc. The sharp yellow wind blade was as big as a willow leaf multiplied by the number of thousands, rolling torrentially towards Shiyang. Inside the wind blade hurricane, beams of devilish purple-red light was extending inaudibly, as soft as cotton yet rigid. Crack, crack, crack. The greenstone, which was as firm as steel, exploded under Lai Feng's feet while rock chips scattered everywhere. Howl, howl, howl. The wind howled and reverberated. The hurricane was like a column dragging everything up to the sky. The rocks exploded as the hurricane pressed down, heavy as the force of 10,000 soldiers. Shiyang slammed his brows together. Under the whips of the strong wind, he was gathering his power. Pale-hued flows of negative energy oozed out from the acupuncture points in his entire body, moving fast in his meridians and blending with his essence qi. Bang bang. The muscles of his whole body bulged. The power hidden deep inside his muscle fibers was activated instantly, surging vehemently. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Wind blades shot out from the hurricane, darting to him from every direction. They were all brutal and fierce. The gravitational room was 200 meters squared, but it was smashed in just a blink of an eye. Pieces of rock were dragged into the hurricane, intensifying its power. In the fluster of flying rock chips, the gravitational room was leveled. However, Shiyang stood still like a 10,000-year-old rock. The wind blades rumblingly stormed over and smashed down his dark light shield, attacking his body. A brutal, bloodthirsty, insane, and hateful thought spurted out from his body, which diffused in the whole scene with an aura of a real substance. Then, it exploded furiously. Each wind blade impacted with that malicious aura around him felt as if it had ignited dynamite. Everything burst out blazingly. Boom. He stomped on the ground, causing a tremor to transmit to Shiyang's feet. His legs didn't settle down, but his power was pouring deep into the soil. The hurricane stormed over, but it couldn't lift him off the ground. It could only spin around him, sending more wind blades to attack him. The warriors watching the fight got stunned, exclaiming in fear. Shiyang had only the Sky Realm cultivation base, but he wasn't shaken under Lai Feng's swarming wind. This was inexplicable to them. Since Lai Feng was a spirit realm warrior, even if he didn't use all of his power, the understanding he had of the powers of heaven and earth wasn't something a Sky Realm warrior could compare with. Lai Feng was the pride of the Devil Valley, the bizarre evil seed that had escaped the 36 terminating caves. Everyone present here could sense the intimidating nature of his swarming wind. Such powerful force couldn't lift Shiyang to the sky, of course, it was beyond people's prediction. This man has a strong foundation. Dangerous though. Eula's eyes brightened. With only his build and the power of the essence qi, and without any treasure used, he can stay firmly on the ground like that. It's not something a normal person can do. Not bad. Not bad at all. Young men and women of the Radiant God cult standing next to Eula were all startled. They started to discuss boisterously, their faces excited. Earth origin. This is the resonance between the body and the earth. Only the warriors who are specialized in using the earth power can reach this realm. Luo Yu also muttered, although it's not hard to control the earth origin, the young man here can stand firmly like that under the furious hurricane, which is rare. The power of his legs is overwhelming already. The same comments arose from the crowd. People now looked at Shiyang with more surprise. Interesting, Lai Feng cracked a smile. He wasn't surprised but happy. He was a fighting maniac. As he could see that Shiyang could play a big game with him, he became excited, and started to accumulate his power. The hands he had always hidden in the sleeves were finally exposed. Spirit Hall. Li Zhengrong and the 4 Grand Elders were discussing discreetly as they suddenly found a surging energy spread over from the precious tool valley. All of them couldn't help but sense quietly. Some spirit realm warriors are fighting. Li Zhengrong shouted. He got indignant immediately. We set the curfew of banning fighting already, but someone still violates it. Don't they know what situation we are in? Then, Li Zhengrong left the Spirit Hall, flying fast towards the precious Tool Valley. In the Tool Hall, Grand Elder Kudier was also enraged. He furiously walked out of the hall, checking the hurricane in the sky. He suddenly screamed in awe. It's Lai Feng. Lai Feng didn't give us face. Who is he fighting with? Eula. Lai Feng and Eula don't get along well. Lai Feng doesn't abide by the rules, but Eula won't do that. It shouldn't be Eula. Let's go there and see. Let's go. Chapter 550, Force Meets Force. Chapter 550, Force Meets Force. The sun shone dazzlingly over the precious Tool Valley. Under the orange-red sunbeams, the atmosphere in the valley heated up. Shi Yang was standing in the middle of a training court with so many warriors surrounding. They all looked excited, discussing boisterously with each other and seemed to be all high. Eula, Luo Yu, and their brothers and sisters had their eyes glued to the scene. They didn't dare to blink, only focusing on the battle over there. Lai Feng continued to accumulate his power. Hurricanes continued to shoot up the sky. They then combined together, creating the swarming wind, washing away things on the training courts. Under the furious hurricane, the training yards were broken, smashed down as easy as breaking a dried tree branch. Warriors training inside hurled themselves out of the places, screaming and yelling with enraged expressions. Lai Feng beamed a faint smile, ignoring all the bad comments and complaints from them. He only smiled at Shi Yang, who was submerged entirely inside the hurricane. Wind blades slaughtered everywhere, flying like sharp sickles. Beams of light bloomed inside the hurricane. The aura it diffused was so sharp that it made people want to stay away from it as far as possible. Shi Yang had no place to hide, and he didn't want to hide. His negative power was still urging. Second sky of rampage. His mind sank into the rampage realm as he was calmly looking at the increasing power of the hurricane. The muscles in his body enlarged and shivered when many types of energy were fusing. His aura became densely refined. Without using the powers from the ice-cold flame, the earth flame, and the Holy Spirit God, Shi Yang had urged the negative energy and the explosive power of his flesh body to resist the attack from the hurricane. He never showed that he was about to lose. The bystanders revealed their terrified faces as they were astounded. They had thought that when Lai Feng arrived, with his spirit realm cultivation base, this fight would end shortly, and Shi Yang would be killed instantly. But the result was out of their expectation. In the hurricane's havoc, Shi Yang was like a small boat bobbing in the vast sea, which seemed to be about to getting destroyed at any minute while the risk was constantly increasing. However, after a long while, Shi Yang's boat was still bouncing at the same spot, without turning upside down. Everybody admired him. Man, you're good. Lai Feng couldn't help but beam out a trace of respect. Even the Sky Realm warriors from our Devil Valley can't achieve your level. Not bad, dude. That's why you're arrogant. Turns out you have absolute confidence. Good. Smashing your confidence will give me a great sense of achievement. Demon coiling hands. The two exposing hands of Lai Feng thrust forward fast. People then saw a lot of fading shadows shot out, turning into numerous soft, black hands, entangling Shi Yang. Hundreds of bizarre hands grew from his body like tentacles, swimming like snakes in the gust of the hurricane, approaching Shi Yang quickly. Shortly, those tentacles found their target inside the hurricane, coiling Shi Yang entirely. The demon coiling hands was the sacred level martial technique, a long-time famous technique of the Devil Valley. It had absorbed the murderous aura of 36 terminating caves in the Devil Valley. The warrior then used his essence chi to refine it to be harder and more flexible at the same time. It was much dangerous than secret weapons. Once it was activated, the demon coiling hands were like the warrior's eyes, contacting with his soul consciousness. As long as the soul consciousness moved fast enough, the demon coiling hands would wind the opponent's body when he didn't have time to react. Shi Yang got hit. Onlookers were stunned. They felt a little bit regret inside as they thought that Shi Yang couldn't resist it anymore. At that time, Lai Feng moved. He just swung his hands, and the demon coiling hands covered Shi Yang's body, entering the hurricane. He then activated devil palms unceasingly, condensed many kinds of evil energies, and then struck down rumblingly. Boom, boom, boom. In the deafening explosions, beams weaved, shining like sparkling fireworks. Light dots bloomed out in the hurricane like thick shattered stars. The evil energy burst out, expanding everywhere. The power of the hurricane soared again, continually increasing the pressure. Shortly, muscles in Shi Yang's body cracked as if he had gotten countless swords pierced through his body at the same time. Blood gushed out from his wounds like streams. The wounds were so deep that people could even see his bones. It was so painful that nothing could compare. Shi Yang's eyes reddened, revealing a pair of blood-red pupils. Numerous rays of light flashed. Third sky of rampage. Extreme bloodthirsty thoughts flooded his head. At this moment, Shi Yang was fuzzy. Lai Feng was powerful, which surpassed his understanding. At the first sky of spirit realm, Lai Feng had a strangely ever-changing devil techniques. His power was pure but evil, and his understanding of the realm was much more profound than the other first sky of spirit realm warriors. When Lai Feng actually urged all of his powers and the limit that he could reach, he could even deal with the second sky of spirit realm expert. Shi Yang had a wrong assumption about this man. He hadn't arranged the defense carefully and got bound by Lai Feng's demon coiling hands. Malicious light flared from his red pupils, as a thick scent of blood exuded from him, expanding quietly. Inside the blood mist rising in spirals, Shi Yang faced the sky and roared loudly. His voice shot up to the sky, as the power in his body was urged to the extreme limit. A tremendous murderous aura shot to the sky from his head. Inside the dense blood mist, only the thought of slaughtering remained in Shi Yang's head. He had forgotten everything. The only thing he knew now was to kill all of his enemies. No worry, no happiness, no fear. Only murderous thoughts rose like rising tides. The death intent domain was urged instinctively. A glum, tranquil aura inaudibly diffused, as if it wanted to destroy the entire world. Many trees in the training yards yellowed then shriveled at the speed that naked eyes could observe. Their roots crumpled. Insects fell one by one. At the same time, the death intent domain also affected tiny creatures underground, but people couldn't recognize it. Only the thought of death. The death and life seal was also activated. In the third sky of rampage, the negative energy was released freely. 7 hand imprints which were as big as a whole room appeared and piled up on each other in the void. Evil, brutal, dead, and desperate thoughts quickly condensed inside the imprints, which doubled its power. The hand imprints fused, leading the murderous aura to the sky, then snatching down from high up. No earth-shaking explosion, no majestic scene of shattering rocks. The training yard was quiet. However, a bizarre change had happened in this silence. The hurricane was torn apart in the middle as if a sharp hand had cut it. In just a blink, numerous demon coiling hands disappeared. Lai Feng's beautiful and practical demonic techniques seemed to be forced to stop. They were totally subdued. His blood pupils shone the angry flame of a bloodthirsty beast. With blood scattering everywhere, Shi Yang aimed at Lai Feng, using the abundant power of his body to strike. Each hit of him was like it was used to break the mountain, with the energy surging violently. In the death intent domain between Shi Yang and Lai Feng, it seemed some invisible barriers concealed the two's aura. Onlookers only saw the two of them flexed, then storm over like a thunderbolt. But they couldn't hear the sound of their impact or sense the power of each hit. Bloody fighting. Blood streamed out from Shi Yang, which made him look like a bloodthirsty demon from the bottom level of hell. He had totally gone crazy. Light sparkled from his bloody eyes which scared the onlookers. They didn't dare to look at him in the eyes. Lai Feng was affected as well. The power in his body was restrained. His accomplishment in the spirit realm seemed to be dragged into the abyss of death, as his confidence was nibbled bit by bit. Lai Feng activated all of his powers. Numerous devil techniques that he had been cultivated exquisitely came layer upon layer. Devilish, ghostly light expanded immensely. Attacks that could make people dizzy arose constantly. Force met force. The two silhouettes entangled, wildly bursting out together. Light sparked like shooting stars. Sparkling and glorious, they mesmerized people. Lai Feng didn't realize that his body was covered with blood now. Also, nobody knew whether this was his blood or Shi Yang's. The more Lai Feng fought, the more astounded he became. He had never thought that a kid in the sky realm could use force to withstand his force. Also, he had never seen that human body could be fierce and robust to that degree. Many kinds of techniques that had been imparted during thousands of years in the Devil Valley hit Shi Yang like hitting the most solid rock in the world. Sounds of metal impacting echoed constantly. The power of Shi Yang's body made him feel like he was fighting against a rock puppet, and not a flesh body. Anyway, he could ignore this feature. The scariest feature of this man was his recovery ability. Inside the court, he could see clearly that Shi Yang's body was covered with wounds. However, during the fight, he saw the cuts close and then get restored. Wounds recovering during the fighting? What was going on? Lai Feng couldn't believe his own eyes. If he hadn't seen all of Shi Yang's cuts restoring, he would think that he was hallucinating. Unfortunately, he knew it wasn't his illusion. It was all real. During the fighting, his opponent's body recovered quickly, and his fighting competence wasn't weakened too much from the beginning to the end. Quite the contrary, his body got hurt badly, and he was bleeding. Gradually, he felt helpless. Inside the death intent domain, his will was worn out. The confidence that hadn't been shaken before started to wear away. It was the first time Lai Feng found that in the divine Great Land, there was a man in the sky realm who could fight the proud sons of God at the spirit realm like them. This finding was like a hammer hitting him and suffocating him. The battle still continued. Bystanders couldn't see many clues from the death intent domain. All the powers inside were twisting, not revealing their true forms. Also, they couldn't hear the ear-splitting impact, but only the two vague silhouettes. Li Zhenrong and Ku Da arrived when the fight was at its peak ferocity. They landed with grimaced faces. "Teacher," Lin Yaqi called out tenderly. Her face was anxious as she was struggling under the whole body restraint of the wind barrier. Li Zhenrong snorted, then struck the barrier made by Lai Feng. He pulled Lin Yaqi to his side and asked, "What happened?" "Lai Feng's fighting with Shi Yang. Lai Feng has the spirit realm cultivation base, while Shi Yang has only the third sky of sky realm cultivation base. Lai Feng's bullying him," said Lin Yaqi indignantly. Li Zhenrong was surprised. He looked at the battle in the court. His narrow eyes squinted. Then, he couldn't help but shout, "Is that Shi Yang?" Lin Yaqi nodded continually like a hen feeding on rice. When he arrived, Li Zhenrong assumed that Lai Feng's opponent would be someone at his level like Yu Le or Luo Yu. However, this situation was fierce as if the participants of this battle had the same level. In the Precious Tool Valley and the Spirit Potion Valley, the ones who could fight face-to-face with Lai Feng were only Yu Le of the Radiant God Cult and Luo Yu of the Pure Land. However, listening to Lin Yaqi, Li Zhenrong found that things were out of his expectation. Li Zhenrong knew that Shi Yang wasn't ordinary. From the night Yi Changfeng had returned from the dark magnetic noxious mist, he often complimented Shi Yang a lot. However, Li Zhenrong instinctively assumed that although Shi Yang was strong, he was just an extreme in the endless sea. So, when he came to the divine Great Land, his level wasn't enough to be on the ranking list. But now, he knew that he had clearly underrated the young man. Chapter 551, Blood Pupils. Chapter 551, Blood Pupils. Who was Lai Feng? He was the demon kind that the Devil Valley had put forth all cultivating resources in to nurture him as he would become the master of the Devil Valley in the future. He had the Spirit Realm cultivation base, but still, he couldn't defeat Shi Yang instantly. What was going on? Shi Yang was in the Sky Realm. If he had the power as strong as a Spirit Realm warrior from the small families, he would be considered a special talent already. However, His opponent was Lai Feng. Lai Feng exclaimed in his head that he had underestimated the opponent, and that he didn't see the real dangerous features of Shi Yang. "Old Li, you know that kid?" Ku Die walked to him, his face surprised. "Is he your disciple?" Li Zhangrong snorted. "I'm an alchemist. I'm not good at fighting. Do you think I can train this type of disciple?" Ku Die nodded, sighed, then beamed a wry smile. "Oh, I say, if you have that sort of an apprentice, I would be totally convinced." "Hey, who's he?" "A kid from the Endless Sea. His natural endowment's really good. He used to go to the dark magnetic noxious mist alone," Li Zhengrong explained simply. Dark magnetic noxious mist. Ku Die was moved. Suddenly, he was swiftly excited. "Hey, the drop of life original fluid that you got is from him?" Besides the Tool Hall's blacksmiths standing next to Ku Die, there were alchemists of Spirit Hall on Li Zhangrong's side. They all had their eyes brightened. Some experts hiding there also knew the miraculous effect of the life original fluid. They were all thrilled like rabbits seeing carrots. They hungrily looked at Shi Yang in the court. Li Zhangrong blamed himself for being talkative. He hurriedly shouted, "Shi Yang's my friend. Don't plan your dark schemes on him. Otherwise, I won't stay idle." Ku Die and his men laughed. Their eyes showed something, but they didn't regard him. Li Zhangrong's brow slammed together. He had so many worries. Ku Die and Li Zhangrong were all here, so no one dared to talk about the curfew. All were astounded on seeing Shi Yang's competence. They wanted to see Shi Yang's real abilities, to which level he could reach. The battle continued. Inside the Hurricane and the Death Intent domain, Lai Feng was urging so many types of devil techniques. But still, he couldn't defeat Shi Yang just yet. A pair of blood pupils appeared dazzlingly inside the Hurricane. People couldn't help but gaze at him. After Shi Yang had entered the third sky of Rampage, he had only the thought of destroying all the creatures in front of him. He didn't have any other thoughts. He knew many secret techniques, and after entering the third sky of Rampage, he didn't get weaker. On the contrary, his power skyrocketed. This realm seemed to be able to promote all of his fighting potential abilities. The power of many martial techniques that he couldn't maximize under normal circumstances now revealed fully. Lai Feng's muscles cracked. Just like Shi Yang, he was bleeding. However, he didn't have the recovery ability that went against the natural order like Shi Yang. Along with the battle, his power gradually drained. He had lost a lot of blood, so he often felt that he was about to faint at any minute. Lai Feng knew that he couldn't stand for long. Without 12 years of training ascetically in 36 terminating caves with the will of steel, he would have admitted his defeat soon. He was struggling to get out of the Death Intent domain. Xuemu and Ya Lai were also anxious. They all felt that the fight in the Precious Tool Valley was too furious. This battle was more interesting than what they had imagined. Eventually, Xuemu and Ya Lai flew out, getting to the position of the battle. It seemed all warriors in the Precious Tool Valley and the Spirit Tool Valley had come. When they gathered here, they temporarily forgot the threat of the dead souls. Boom, boom, boom. Thick and dense explosions reverberated from the Hurricane and the Death Intent domain. In the middle of the loud explosion, Shi Yang and Lai Feng separated from each other. The light in Lai Feng's eyes dimmed. Blood gushed out from him massively. He was exhausted, and not much power left in him. On the other side, the blood on Shi Yang clotted, as he stopped bleeding quickly. Under the scrutinizing eyes of hundreds of people, flesh and blood in his wounds moved and restored quickly. His blood pupils raked over the place. He didn't gaze at Lai Feng, but conveniently killed a Nirvana realm warrior who stood nearest behind his back. This shocked a lot of people. They were cursing loudly while retreating. Afterward, Shi Yang didn't stop there. He continued to kill the warriors standing next to him. Another 3 Sky Realm warriors were killed instantly. Essence Chi started to move, entering his body through his pores. The ruthless, insane aura on Shi Yang's body was condensed more. His crazy. F***CK. You got mental problem? We are just onlookers. Why do you attack us? You fool. Don't you see that he's in the bedevilment state? Many warriors got terrified. They started to move as fast from Shiyang as possible. They were cursing under their breath, but none of them dared to attack Shiyang, as they were afraid that they would be his next targets. On the other side, Lai Feng was panting far from Shiyang. His breath was short and heavy. He was exhausted, and didn't want to continue. Lai Feng's state was way too bad. He knew that if he wanted, he could use the most sinister secret technique of the Devil Valley to stimulate his power to another realm for the second time. However, if he did that, he would become much weaker than now. Or, it could leave him some bad sequelae, which he wasn't sure he could recover fully from. He didn't dare. He and Shiyang didn't have any big grudge. He had spent too much in this battle. If he wanted to risk his life with Shiyang, even if he won, he already knew the big price he had to pay for this victory. The most important thing was that even if he had to urge the evil mystique, he didn't have the absolute confidence. Thus, seeing Shiyang was like a wolf storming into the sheep herd, slaughtering the crowd, he didn't continue to attack him, just stood and stared indifferently. Whose disciple was this kid? Why was he so dangerous? Lai Feng was dizzy. He was secretly scared because of the power Shiyang had brought out. "Stop him!" someone shouted among the crowd. "He's completely insane. If we don't kill him, he'll kill us. He's a madman. We can't let him massacre us like that." Ku Da hesitated for a while. He couldn't help but shout, "Don't kill him. Get him." At this moment, Xuemu and Ya Lai arrived. They then saw Shiyang with his wild expression, chasing and killing the other warriors. Their faces changed. They inquired around for brief information, and couldn't help but be terrified. They didn't expect that things would escalate to this point. They could never imagine that Shiyang could be so intimidating that he would make Lai Feng pay a big price. "If we don't eliminate him, the two valleys will never be peaceful again," Feng Biao said with a cruel face. He didn't wait for Ku Da and Li Zhengrong, immediately heading towards Shiyang. Everybody was stunned, as they were cursing Feng Biao in their heads. Feng Biao was a third sky of spirit realm expert. An expert at the threshold of the true god realm wanted to fight with a sky realm warrior in his bedevilment state. Although they didn't like Shiyang, still, they thought Feng Biao was going too far. Instantly, people understood that Feng Biao wanted to take revenge for his disciple Hao Hai. Since his apprentice was hurt badly, being a high-class expert in the Devil Valley who always focused on his face, he should be enraged and take revenge for his disciple. It was fairly reasonable. However, he was availing himself of this situation, wasn't he? "Feng Biao. He's my friend." Li Zhengrong roared as he wanted to come forward and stop the other. "If you want to touch him, you'll be my enemy. He's insane. He's killing innocent people. He's crazier than the Devil Valley's disciples. If you want to protect him, you're going against the whole valley." Feng Biao raised a big accusation. He didn't talk more, aiming at Shiyang. However, at this moment, Shiyang's blood pupils seemed to recognize the danger. The trace of being conscious appeared deep inside his wild eyes. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Light shot out from the blood vein ring. After they had sensed their master's summons, War Devil, Ghost Hunter, King of Demonic Insects, Ice Cold Flame, Earth Flame, and the devouring gold silkworm got out, besieging Feng Biao instantly. A pitiful scream sounded. Feng Biao faced the sky, spurting out blood. He was blown away from in front of Shiyang. A stream of blood arched in the sky eccentrically, which made everyone shiver in fear. The training yard was completely silent. Everybody dropped their jaw. The majestic ghost hunter hovered in the air, taking Shiyang on its back and soaring up to the sky while tearing the wind. Immediately, they were flying far away from the precious Tool Valley. The king of demonic insects, the ice-cold flame, the earth flame, and the devouring gold silkworm followed behind them right away. The war devil came last. An earth-destroying aura flooded the whole valley from him, filling each tiny corner. Xuemu, Ya Lai, Li Zhengrong, and Ku Da were frightened. They couldn't do anything but watch the ghost hunter take Shiyang away. They didn't dare to do anything at all. Feng Biao hadn't fallen to the ground even as blood gushed out from the corner of his mouth. He had gotten hurt severely. Feng Biao was a third sky of spirit realm expert. Among the warriors in the valleys, Feng Biao was one of the strongest. But he was wounded in just a blink of an eye. What kind of force could do that to him? Everyone felt terrified, looking at Shi Yang flying away. No one dared to say anything about killing him again. Ice-cold flame, 10,000-year earth flame, the level 8 demonic beast, the corpse-eating insect, Ku Da muttered as he was absent-minded. Heaven flame, the earth flame. They are the godly treasures to refine weapons. Why does this man have such luck? All blacksmiths and alchemists in the valley had their eyes reddened, their breath short and heavy. No matter it was the ice-cold flame or the earth flame, they were the fiery flames that the blacksmiths and the alchemists had been dreaming of for their whole life. Any alchemist and blacksmith who had these two flames, their attainments in refining medicine and forging weapons would bounce to another new realm. To the alchemists and blacksmiths, the flame was the most precious treasure. When they had an excellent flame, the future of their career would be lit up. Old Li, who's he after all? He has the life original fluid, the ice-cold flame and the 10,000-year earth flame, and even the king of demonic insect. I don't know which god king's inheritance he has gotten. Ku Da beamed a bitter smile, looking at Li Zhengrong while gulping continually. How can I know that? Li Zhengrong also goggled. Everything that happened today had gone beyond his estimation. Shi Yang's performance had scared him. Where is that B***starred Yi Changfeng? Li Zhengrong asked through his gritted teeth. He knew that Yi Changfeng would know Shi Yang's profile. I don't know, Lin Yaqi shook her head. Whatever method you use, find that brat for me. Tell him to use the soundstone and call me, shouted Li Zhengrong. Lin Yaqi nodded with a frightened countenance. She seemed to not have yet recovered from Shi Yang's intimidation. Chapter 552, Self-Torture. Chapter 552, Self-Torture. The northwest of the Dead Soul mountain range, in an isolated peak. Shi Yang sat cross-legged on the summit. The blood-red hue in his pupils faded as his original countenance restored. The war devil, the ghost hunter, the ice-cold flame, the king of demonic insects, and the Holy Spirit God were hovering around, guarding him in silence in case some danger came suddenly. The moonlight was like silvery water, shining all over him. Tiny stars twinkled, decorating the night sky. Starlight condensed and then poured on him silently. Shi Yang stood upright. After 4 hours, he opened his eyes, taking in a deep breath. His energy had been restored. After the recovery period, his cruel mood had been calmed down. His sea of consciousness was like a shiny mirror lighting everywhere. It was now a peaceful and harmonious zone. The ice-cold flame sent him its thought, "Are you all right?" Shi Yang smiled and nodded, "Yeah. I didn't expect that I had to urge the third sky of rampage in that battle. Lai Feng isn't a typical person, indeed. His worth the new generation of experts of the Devil Valley. Really a genius." Lai Feng was a devil kind who would inherited the great path of the Devil Valley in the future. He had spent many years to cultivate in 36 terminating caves, so his understanding of the secret techniques of the Devil Valley made him the most prominent young expert of the divine Great Land. Although he didn't use the secret treasures of the Devil Valley, his power was still formidable. Shi Yang could take the upper hand over him thanks to the arduous training he had given himself these recent years. The negative energy, the explosive power of his flesh body, the refined essence qi, and his complicated, mysterious martial techniques had pushed his overall strength to an even greater extreme point than that of the others. "It's good that you're all right. When you left, many people wanted to hurt you." The ice-cold flame simply described the appearance of the onlookers at that time in the precious Tool Valley. Shi Yang's face was cold. He snorted as he got it. "Peasants are innocent. Wearing jade, you're guilty." Not only he had the ice-cold flame, the earth flame, but also the devil breeds like the king of demonic insects. To the warriors in the Spirit Potion Valley and the Precious Tool Valley, he was mysterious. It was typical that people would desire the treasures someone had. Shi Yang understood that after that fight, his name would be spread out fast in the entire Dead Soul mountain range. And, of course, he couldn't hide the fact that he had many treasures on his body. If it weren't the intimidating aura from the strange creatures like the war devil or the ghost hunter, those people in the valley would have killed him right on the spot. It was human nature. The world of the warriors was filled with greed and snatching. Many of them couldn't avoid the desires deep in their hearts. To be honest, if he knew someone with so many great treasures like that, he would have some dark thoughts and secretly plan his wild scheme to get them himself. There were many experts from the Pure Land, the Radiant God Cult, and the Devil Valley. Also, there were the alchemists and blacksmiths like Li Zhengrong and Kudie Hotshots. There were as many as clusters of cloud in the sky. If they wanted to capture him, returning there meant turning himself in. Moreover, the hotshots staying in the two valleys weren't only these people. According to Lin Yaqi, not long afterward, true God Realm warriors of the Radiant God Cult, the Pure Land, and the Devil Valley would arrive. Then, a bloody war with the Dead Souls would begin. At that time, the Dead Soul mountain range would become a massive battlefield that no one could ignore. If he still stayed in the valley, even the war devil and the ghost hunter couldn't give him the secure feeling. So, it would be better to leave earlier. Even though the Dead Souls were dangerous, as long as he did his best to avoid them, it was possible to hide away. This mountain range was so vast with so many mountains. He just needed to find an isolated mountain and stay there for 1 year or so to cultivate. It shouldn't be a tough job. He needed time. Meditating on the summit, Shi Yang assessed the situation quietly. Long after that, he made up his mind. I want to find a safe, remote area to cultivate ascetically for a while in this mountain range. Shi Yang sent the message to the ice-cold flame. Which place is good for me? It isn't bad to stay here. I've sensed around. There's no dead soul in this area. Good, then we'll stay here. Shi Yang stood up, releasing his soul consciousness to hundreds of miles around. Indeed, there was no sign of dead souls. He relaxed his tense nerves. Next, he dug a cave, got in there and then used the thick, heavy rock to seal his cave. While he was fighting with Lai Feng, he had lost his mind and killed some warriors, whose essence qi had been absorbed into his body. After refining, their essence qi was now fused with him completely. At this moment, Shi Yang had reached the peak again, and the strange energy in his muscles was supplemented. There are some beasts in the mountains around here. Further than that, there are some cultivating materials we can use. We can go out and stretch the body for a while. Apparently, the ice-cold flame had become the spokesman of the strange creatures living with him. Staying with you all the time isn't always good for our continual growth. Shi Yang was amazed. He pondered then nodded. You guys should be careful. He opened the stone door. The ice-cold flame, the earth flame, and the Holy Spirit God flew out. The Holy Spirit God had used the white skeleton clone of Bo Zun to be its real entity. The clone had shining jade-like bones. Its speed was relatively slow, and they could hear the cracking from the joints when it was moving. It had spent a lot of effort to train this ancient body in the blood vein ring. However, in its current situation, it needed more time to completely adapt to this skeleton. The ghost hunter, the king of demonic insects, and the devouring gold silkworm were hesitant for a while, then also flew away. Shi Yang was bewildered looking at the three strange creatures flying away. He didn't get a clue. Perhaps, these three tangible beings liked the Dead Soul mountain range? Only the war devil stayed to guard him. Shi Yang frowned, then contemplated for a while. When he was about to use the original soul pellet to restore his soul consciousness, all of a sudden, he found that the 5 devils in his sea consciousness were agitated too. You guys. After one time of transformation, their intelligence had started to develop. Although they couldn't talk directly to him, they could send him some vague thoughts. The 5 devils also wanted to go out for a while. Shi Yang could sense the thoughts from the 5 devils pretty clearly. He was astounded for a while, then he nodded with a forced smile. Be careful. Those dead souls are the best nutrition, but they aren't idiotic. If you meet the high-level ones, you can't swallow them. The 5 devils turned into 5 gloomy beams of grey light, silently disappearing without leaving a trace. The connection between him and the 5 devils wasn't cut off. Within hundreds of miles, he could always know the exact location and thoughts of the 5 devils. However, If the 5 devils moved farther, the connection between them would weaken. The situation of the ice-cold flame, the earth flame, the king of demonic insects, the ghost hunter, and the Holy Spirit God was the same as the 5 devils. These living beings had their souls linked with his immortal blood, which created a miraculous connection with him. However, this connection wasn't invariable. When the distance between them reached a certain limit, the connection would be weakened until it disappeared completely. Long after that, Shi Yang had lost the whereabouts of all of these creatures. His host soul couldn't sense anything, and his soul consciousness couldn't form a connection. Shi Yang suddenly felt empty and lost. The lonely emotion swelled up in his heart that he couldn't control or wash it away. Along his journey, these living beings rarely left him. Gradually, he had considered them part of his life, and he had treated them as family members and comrades. Being with them, Shi Yang had never felt lonely, never had the feeling that he was fighting alone. All of a sudden, when these strange creatures left him one by one, he immediately had some strange thoughts as he felt empty. It was like something very important to his life was about to leave him. Although he knew that they wouldn't go for a long time, he was still worried. It was like a father seeing his children leaving home. He would miss them and worry about them, always afraid that they would meet unexpected situations. The existence of this mood irritated his mind, which troubled him from changing his sea of conscious. Long time after that, he couldn't meditate. Until the early dawn of the next day, when a wisp of dawn shone in the cave and lit up an area in front of him, he woke up and found that the dejected feeling he was feeling had been washed away at this moment. In just a fraction of time, his mind and heart became crystal clear. It was a sort of mental maturity that had jumped into his heart all of a sudden. He seemed to understand the true meaning of life, and his heart was more open. The blacksmith's secrets of success flew out, floating in front of him. His soul consciousness connected with the hollow soul. His mind and heart fused together as he entered the location of the teleportation formation once again. He started to comprehend the miraculous techniques, the complicated, abstruse line arrangements. He completely concentrated on understanding the meanings in them. The teleportation formation was the direct utilization of the mysterious space. It used the technique to lead the space power, using the nodes to urge the energy of the crystal stone, which would move things from one coordinate directly to another. The teleportation formation in this blacksmith's secrets of success could be considered the essence. All mysteries of teleportation formations were stacked in there. Strange beams of light weaved with each other like a shuttle, creating the blinking nodes. The distance between a pair of nodes was different, but it carried the mission of connecting spaces. At each node, space energy was constantly rippling out like rings of light, which was the transmission of the supplement power from outside. Shi Yang's mind sank into it as he forgot everything, wallowing in the formation that looked like the bedevilment state. His comprehension of the truth of the teleportation formation became more profound by any minute. He eventually reached the threshold of the understanding of space power. Now, he could vaguely touch a beam of the mysterious space power through the formation of the teleport formation. Precious Tool Valley. The group of Li Zhengrong and Ku Da gathered in the tool hall. Xuemu and Ya Lai looked at Feng Biao, who had blood all over his body. They exchanged looks but didn't know what to say. The juniors stayed outside the tool hall. Yu Le, Luo Yu, and Lai Feng all wore stunned face as they were discussing with a low tone. Shi Yang had made his debut outstandingly, which made the ones who came from the 7 ancient factions feel the pressure like a mountain for the first time. Shi Yang had only the Sky Realm cultivation base, but Lai Feng couldn't do anything to harm him. He even fell into the disadvantaged situation. Such event had terrified people. "Are you sure that guy comes from the Endless Sea?" Ku Da rubbed his chin, his eyes disbelieving. "Has he been taught by any old monster here? We all know that in the divine Great Land, it's not just the 7 ancient factions that could teach such a formidable apprentice." "He comes from the Endless Sea," snorted Li Zhangrong. "Yi Chang Feng sent me messages. He said that that young man is from the Yang family in the Endless Sea. Perhaps you have never heard about the Yang family. This family is the strongest force in the Endless Sea. They are not ordinary at all. Really from the Endless Sea." Kudier talked under his breath as his mental obstacles had been cleared. Then it's easy. As long as none of those old B***stards have taught him, and if we show him our goodwill, we can move him perhaps, eh? I need 1 drop of the life original fluid. I've been thinking about the true God realm for years. Xuemu and Ya Lai had their eyes heated up. Chapter 553, Repair Rare Treasures. Chapter 553, Repair Rare Treasures. Late at night, Shi Yang woke up again from the blacksmith's secrets of success. His soul consciousness was damaged badly. He was exhausted, but his eyes shone brightly. He had used up all his original soul pellets. The recovery of his soul consciousness thus had slowed down. However, he had perceived the crucial teleportation formation in the blacksmith's secrets of success. He had a feeling that he just needed 3 or 4 times of accessing the book to comprehend the technique to build an actual teleportation formation. However, without original soul pellets, restoring the soul consciousness required lots of time and efforts. It wasn't the way, he considered, frowning while searching for the way to improve or restore his soul consciousness quickly. The items in his storage ring and blood vein ring were raked through as he was trying to find a solution for this matter. He noticed the bead, which was shiny black, shimmering with a dark halo. It seemed to have a feeling soul fluctuations moving in the center. His eyes lit up as he felt roused. Soul Gathering Pearl. This pearl was the beast soul devouring bead. It could absorb the souls and purify them into crystal clear soul energy. Soul energy was the power of soul consciousness. He remembered clearly that he had borrowed the soul energy of the Soul Gathering Pearl to create the Sea of Consciousness at Earth Realm. At that time, he had been able to sense the creatures around him. The Soul Gathering Pearl had been damaged before, and couldn't be restored. However, according to the ice-cold flame, his immortal martial spirit generated the immortal blood, which had a strange effect of repairing things. The immortal blood had been created in his body. At the same time, he had comprehended the immortal rebirth secret in the immortal canon, which taught him how to restore damaged things. As long as he could fix the Soul Gathering Pearl and kill some people, he could use the Soul Gathering Pearl to gather the power from the souls, then purify them to supplement his Sea of Consciousness. Ha. Shi Yang couldn't help but smile cheerily. If he had thought about the Soul Gathering Pearl earlier, he wouldn't need soul restoring pellets and original soul pellets. With the soul energy generated from the Soul Gathering Pearl, when his soul consciousness got damaged, he could recover quickly. At the same time, his Sea of Consciousness would be enlarged. The Soul Gathering Pearl flew out from the storage ring, falling into his palm. His soul consciousness flickered, and a cut appeared on the fingertip of his left index finger. A drop of dark ruby blood, glistering with a golden halo, dripped from the cut, falling onto the pearl precisely. The immortal rebirth secret was activated, as Shi Yang's blood in his entire body boiled up. Following his blood, his essence qi gushed out torrentially like rising tide. Essence qi seeped into the Soul Gathering Pearl. The bead then flashed up as its dark halo constantly flickering. Then, he saw the immortal blood drop become more viscous, moving fast at the damaged area on the bead. Shi Yang activated his soul consciousness. Flows of soul consciousness entered the Soul Gathering Pearl, continually manipulating the trajectory of the essence qi to gather them at the damaged area. A miracle happens silently. Under the repairing effect of the immortal blood, the damaged area on the pearl was constantly refined. At this moment, the immortal blood became a repairing energy that made the Soul Gathering Pearl change miraculously. The feeling of vessels connecting was sent to Shi Yang from the Soul Gathering Pearl. Shi Yang was shaken. It worked, indeed. Shi Yang was stunned and joyful. He focused wholeheartedly, using the immortal rebirth secret to guide his blood and essence qi pouring into the bead to repair the damaged area. Crack. A clear sound echoed from the pearl as a strange suction force rippled inside the pearl. Shi Yang's host soul trembled as if it were attracted by some sort of force, wanting to jump off his Sea of Consciousness and into the Soul Gathering Pearl. He succeeded. Shi Yang laughed insanely as he shot up from his seat with an overjoyed expression. He held the Soul Gathering Pearl, feeling the wonderful energy fluctuations in it. The difficult matter that had bothered him a lot was solved easily like that. Since this soul-gathering pearl had been refined and fixed by the immortal blood, it seemed to have become one with Shiyang. Soon, the soul suction force from the bead lost its effect on Shiyang. Afterward, light retrieved into the bead while waves of soul suction force rippled from its center. Shiyang was overjoyed. He didn't care that his soul consciousness hadn't been recovered yet, pushed open the stone door, and started to observe here and there. It was a night without moon or stars. The darkness enveloped the place like a big black fabric sheet, covering the whole sky. Starlight crossed through thick layers of dark cloud, patiently pouring into his body. His heart was full of bright starlight as he was enjoying absorbing the energy from the stars. He wanted to search for praise. Shiyang contemplated. Although he had the soul-gathering pearl, he couldn't solve his problem right away. Now, he needed to find the creatures with strong souls to draw their souls into the soul-gathering pearl. Only when the soul was kept inside the pearl would it then be able to refine its energy. The more soul energy input, the stronger the refining energy would be. Shiyang released his soul consciousness, trying to sense for any praise he could put into the soul-gathering pearl. 3 flows of living fluctuations rippled from an isolated mountain around 300 miles from him. This kind of living fluctuation was chilling and evil, full of dead atmosphere, which gave people a feeling that it wasn't from humans. Shiyang's face changed. They were dead souls. Only soul fluctuation from the dead souls could be that cold and evil. The dead souls wandered in the mountains, choosing their victims to take the souls. It could help increase their power or making the warrior's soul become a newly dead soul. Dead souls were soul creature, and didn't have a tangible body. They were good at soul attacks and soul invading. Although their soul energy wasn't similar to humans, they were really powerful. Well, dead souls it will be, Shiyang smiled. He put the war devil back into the blood vein ring and then moved out of the cave quietly, flying towards the general direction where the dead soul's fluctuation arose. 15 minutes later, Shiyang arrived at a remote, mountainous area. Following the sensing of his soul consciousness, he found a hidden tree cave. 3 gloomy, dark green, short-limbed creatures with skin like a toad that was filled with wrinkles and disgusting pimples stayed there. Intimidating light shot out from their icy-cold green pupils. Shiyang was terrified. They weren't hollow. The 3 dead souls he had sensed had real bodies. Although their bodies were grossly ugly, they give people a feeling of being sinister and very dangerous. The 3 dead souls found him. 3 mournful cries of grievance that could tear his eardrum sounded. The 3 dead souls with their real bodies shot out towards him like 3 sharp knives. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Amidst their suffering screams that tore the air, the wrinkles on their bodies suddenly got tense as their ugly green bodies became as rigid as steel. Their short arms extended with sharp claws, which looked like the gloomy green blades. Shiyang's face stiffened. He immediately used the dark light shield. Next, he urged his essence chi while the negative energy was oozing out from his meridians and acupuncture points. Even though these 3 dead souls didn't have strong soul energy, their bodies were strong just like a spear that could pierce through space, extremely terrifying. He could confirm that the soul energy in these 3 dead souls was similar to the ones he and Cherry had met. They were some sorts of the weaker ones. However, after these 3 dead souls had obtained real bodies, their power had skyrocketed. Only the strange energy in their ugly green bodies was equal to a Sky Realm warrior. Dead souls knew best how to erode the soul. This meant these 3 dead souls with the real body could defeat typical Sky Realm warriors. The 3 flows of eccentric soul fluctuations were rippling robustly, hiding the thoughts of the extreme evil and cruel deeds, intruding Shiyang's sea of consciousness directly. Shiyang reacted timely. His host soul instantly released the fiery flame of the 9 Serenities' soul-devouring flame, cleaning up the strange energy that had just entered his sea of consciousness. Bang bang bang. Shiyang got hit in his chest as if he were shelled by 3 giant hammers, and was blown away. The muscles in his chest ached and felt numb for a while. 3 flows of devil energy seemed like countless bacteria diffusing quickly in his body, starting to attack all of his body functions. Shortly, his bones, blood, and flesh were all occupied by this strange energy. This aching, numbing, and chilling power flooded his entire body. He couldn't gather his qi. As his tendons and meridians were blocked, his vitality seemed to be drained rapidly. His power was restrained. Shi Yang was panicked. His face changed as he hurried to urge the immortal rebirth secret. The immortal rebirth secret moved. The essence qi of his entire body didn't flow through the vessels, but poured directly into his blood, using the blood to transport through his body. At the same time, the strange energy in his muscles burst out. His body was shivering, enlarging, and then shrinking. Electric currents crossed inside his body at light speed. The eccentric energy from the dead souls in his body was washed away quickly. Gloomy green smoke was pushed out from his pores. He felt relaxed as his meridians were cleared again. But Shi Yang was still tense. He didn't hesitate, taking out the soul-gathering pearl and strongly urging the energy of the 9 serenities soul-devouring flame in his host soul. Flames shot out from his pupils towards the 3 dead souls. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The bodies of the dead souls weren't affected, but their gloomy green eyes suddenly inflamed. Their will was struggling as Shi Yang's mental power had pierced through them, covering them with the dead magnetic field, destroying them gradually. When the will of the dead souls was erased, 3 beams of green light shot out from their pupils. The soul-gathering pearl took them in. 3 fine green fibers like spider web were refined while the soul-gathering pearl kept blinking. Shi Yang's face was still cold. He exhaled deeply, his eyes dangerously solemn. The soul-gathering pearl received the souls from the 3 dead souls, but Shi Yang didn't feel happy. When the dead souls got a real body, their power was far beyond his imagination. If he hadn't reacted timely, and without his strange abilities, these 3 dead souls would have occupied him instantly. And, they weren't strong dead souls. If they were the high-level dead souls, how terrifying they could be. There were so many dead souls in this Dead Soul mountain range. When they were still in the hollow state, they were the dangerous existence that even the spirit realm warriors couldn't counter. When this kind of an existence got a real body, how formidable could it be? While he was contemplating anxiously, in the dark shade of a mountain in the south, a dead soul's evil lair was moving towards him with their speed increasing over time. The dead souls clung at the entrance of the evil lair just like countless ghosts and demons while showing their fangs and claws. Their soul-occupying power started to move crazily. Chapter 554, Dark Spirit Clan. Chapter 554, Dark Spirit Clan. The dead soul's evil lair was like a living creature, shimmering in the air with a gloomy, green halo. It looked ferocious, as if it were searching for some victims to swallow. Shi Yang was still indulging in the surprise caused by the dead souls, and didn't recognize the danger that was approaching. It was only when the evil lair was around hundreds of meters away from him that he finally realized its existence. Dead souls clinging at the entrance of the evil lair looked like ghostly tentacles waving in the air. Those dead souls packed the cave, which hindered Shi Yang's vision. However, the icy-cold, evil aura could storm directly into the deepest place of Warrior's Sea of Consciousness, which could make them to instinctively give up all resistances. Shi Yang cursed under his breath. His face didn't change as he used the electric shift and the star brilliance to retreat rapidly in the shape of a light ray. In a short while, he was thousands of meters away from the dead soul's evil lair. Right when he had the distance, he immediately concentrated his mind, using the power of the 9 serenities soul-devouring flame to filter the eccentric energy in his head. The flame ignited, as the soul-devouring energy in his sea of consciousness was burnt off. Shi Yang sighed inaudibly. Seeing the dead soul's evil lair approaching, he wasn't hurried. He quietly moved his energy, taking out the sky-breaking shuttle, ready for any case. This dead soul's evil lair came strangely. It was quiet, and even the dead souls inside were hiding their aura, which would make people find it hard to detect them. If he hadn't reacted in time using the electric shift and the star brilliance to maximize his speed, he would have gotten trapped for sure. The dead soul's evil lair was like a ghostly mouth, patient and persistent as it kept approaching him. The evil lair accelerated. Now, it was like a shooting star chasing after the moon. It was zooming over too fast, crossing the distance of thousands of meters in just a blink. An erosive soul energy diffused from the entrance of the cave, covering the entire 10 miles around it. The eccentric energy intruded his sea of consciousness the second time. Its momentum this time was fierce, as if it wanted to drain his sea consciousness and enslave his host soul. The 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame activated. Flames flew over in his sea of consciousness, burning that strange soul energy into ashes. Shi Yang continually retreated. He didn't want to check the change inside the evil lair, and used the fastest speed to get away from this place of trouble. He vaguely felt that this evil lair was already occupied by the dead souls. According to Lin Yaqi, even though the dead souls' evil lairs kept changing their locations, they would not proactively attack the warriors or swallow them. But this dead soul's evil lair wasn't like the others. It was strange as it had proactively released the erosive soul energy towards him. Avoiding the evil lair, Shi Yang sped up and left the place. He flew for half a day and then chose a quiet place to cultivate. He took out the soul-gathering pearl. The souls of the 3 dead souls were purified, generating the crystal-clear soul energy that he could absorb directly. Shi Yang conveniently dug a cave, got in, and continued to perceive the wonderful features of the teleportation formation. Dead Soul Mountain Range. From 5 different directions, 5 evil lairs were moving quickly towards the generation direction of the Spirit Potion Valley and the Precious Tool Valley. While they were flying at a fast speed, they would release the erosive soul energy whenever they met human warriors. Under the eccentric effects of this strange energy, many warriors got paralyzed instantly. Their sea of consciousness was poisoned, and they couldn't maintain their body functions. After that, their souls were dragged out, getting pulled into the dead souls' evil lairs. After they swallowed the warriors' soos, the 5 evil lairs swelled up a little bit, and their speed also became faster. 3 days later, the dead souls' evil lairs from the caves and corners of the mountain range appeared in a dense jungle behind the Spirit Potion Valley. The flying speed of the 5 evil lairs slowed down. Each evil lair had many dead souls lingering at the entrance, among which, 1 evil lair had all dead souls with real bodies. Right in the middle of that evil lair's entrance was arranged a diamond sacrificial altar, which was made of bones and flesh. The first dead soul that had a real body stood upright, walking to that altar. Strong energy rippled through it. The diamond sacrificial altar was lit up. A strange, sinister energy was generated, multiplying in it. At the entrance, countless dark green halos headed towards the sacrificial altar, with which the halo from the altar became more blazing. The other 4 evil lairs seemed to be attracted by the altar as they started to move towards it, their speed getting sluggish. The dead souls with real bodies stood at the entrance of the evil lair, diffusing energy and pouring into the altar. The suction force that the altar generated became more intensive, pulling the other 4 evil lairs. Eventually, the 4 evil lairs clung to the evil lair which had the altar. The 5 evil lairs connected to each other with the adhesive force from the dark green halo. Next, they began the difficult combining process. In the center, the first dead soul that had a real body was constantly urging the energy in its body, increasing the suction force for the sacrificial altar. The altar was made of bones and flesh. All of a sudden, blood splashed while flesh shattered everywhere. Under the expanding green halo, the altar crumpled. The 5 dead souls' evil lairs fused into one. A gloomy green ecliptic burst out from that evil lair after they all fused with each other. Numerous dead souls could be seen flying and celebrating in there. The first dead soul that had a real body started to extend its limbs in the giant cave after the 5 evil lairs had combined. It was absorbing the evil green energy which made its limbs more ferocious. The dead souls which already had the bodies scattered and started to absorb that eccentric energy. Time flew quietly. After an unknown time, the dead soul's evil lair shrank along with the green ecliptic extent. All of a sudden, rays of light bloomed. Strange aliens with dark fluorescent skin and green tattoos on their faces struggled, walking out of the ecliptic. They had a humanoid appearance. Their eyes were all cold and sinister. Their whole body was green, their faces had patterns, and their bodies were covered in thick and heavy armor, which seemed to connect tightly with their flesh as if it were an innate feature of their bodies. These aliens had a vicious, cold aura. Resentment appeared in their eyes as if they had a deep grudge against every creature. They were all intimidating, appearing from the evil lairs then shooting towards the Spirit Potion Valley and Precious Tool Valley. That massive Dead Souls evil lair was like a battleship that was connected to them, flying behind. Spirit Potion Valley. Xuemu, Ya Lai, and Li Zhengrong were discussing in the room when all of a sudden, their eyelids convulsed. They all felt fear rising in their hearts. Ya Lai changed his expression in fear. He jolted up, jumping onto an observatory of the spirit hall and released his soul consciousness to sense everywhere. Xuemu and Li Zhengrong also came to the place, extending their soul consciousness. Taking the Spirit Potion Valley as the center, they were spreading the sense far away. Almost at the same time, their eyes showed their fear. From far away, they saw a green light area as spooky as a green swamp. It was gliding deliberately, while the evil energy accumulated in it increased gradually. The Dead Souls. Li Zhengrong screamed in fear. Xuemu and Ya Lai didn't answer him. They all took out the sound stone, frowning while narrating the situation. When Ya Lai was done, he used his soul consciousness to sense again, more carefully. Suddenly, he said, "It's not the Dead Souls. It's the Dark Spirit Clan. This dangerous race has finally rebuilt their bodies and struggled out of the foreign land." Li Zhengrong was surprised. "What do you mean?" Ya Lai was an elder of the Pure Land, one of the oldest factions in the Divine Great Land. Books in their sects piled up like mountains, which even had the secret writings of the whole era. In the Antiquity era, there were many races in the Grace mainland. Humans didn't simply rule the place like now. At some point in history, there was a race called the Dark Spirit Clan. Even if their bodies were smashed, their souls remained. In the ancient time, this race formed a powerful tribal clan. At their peak, they were much stronger than human warriors. They had many generations of experts and hotshots. Ya Lai took a deep breath. The Dark Spirit Clan was good at controlling souls. At their peak, many human warriors had their souls enslaved, making them their servants. In the ancient time, when human warriors rebelled, a multiracial war burst out. After that war, the Dark Spirit Clan was almost uprooted. Under such circumstances, the Dark Spirit Clan decided to leave their bodies, using only the souls to escape to the foreign land. They then kept the big grudge against the race that won the battle. They tried to survive in the foreign land. It's been tens of thousands of years. No one knows what changes the Dark Spirit Clan has experienced in the foreign land. They have become more sinister and inhumane. The 5 Dead Souls evil lairs are the space crack that connects the land of the Dark Spirit Clan, and also their barriers. The strongest experts of the clan had built these 5 barriers that year to prevent the other races from getting in their territory and their members from escaping the place. The stronger they are, the harder it is to get out of the barriers. The dead souls we meet here are the souls of the Dark Spirit Clan's members who had lost their bodies. But they have been changed after thousands of years. Ya Lai revealed the secret regarding the Dark Spirit Clan, which was covered in dust for years, with a solemn visage. None of us know what is in the foreign land inside the Dead Souls' evil lairs. But I know that the current Dark Spirit Clan should have something changed in the foreign land, which makes them more intimidating. They are hard to deal with now. Since they can get through the barrier, I think we have to use all of our forces, continued Ya Lai. Li Zhengrong was scared. I notified my cult master. He'll be here shortly. Xuemu wore a heavy countenance. The returning of the Dark Spirit Clan is related to the future of mankind. Not only my Radiant God cult, but also your Pure Land, Devil Valley, and the other factions have to be careful. Once we're careless, the Dark Spirit Clan will take over this land. You also know of the Dark Spirit Clan? Li Zhengrong snorted. Although the history of our Radiant God cult isn't as profound as the Pure Lands, we used to have some books of the ancient times. We know something about that time too, Xuemu answered deliberately. Li Zhengrong felt pretty uncomfortable, his face indifferent. He scolded, "You've lied to us all the time. We assumed that this clan couldn't escape the barriers. We thought that they had lost many members in that foreign land, so they wouldn't want to invade us anymore." Ya Lai was a little bit embarrassed as he explained, As they are returning now, I've informed you immediately, haven't I? Li Zhangrong put on a serious face. It's because they are here already. Quick. Xuemu clenched his jaw. The enemy's threatening. We have to counter with all of our forces. Everybody should be cautious. Chapter 555, Space Changes. Chapter 555, Space Changes. The Dead Soul's evil lair drifted slowly as it got close to the Spirit Potion Valley and Precious Tool Valley. Green light rippled from the evil lair as it was flowing towards the two valleys. All the warriors present in the valleys were alarmed. As long as they were in the Nirvana realm, their sea of consciousness became chaotic, and they couldn't control it. Their thought was pressed by some strange force. Eventually, the evil lair arrived at the Spirit Potion Valley. Members of the Dark Spirit clan slowly walked out from the green light. They were like a cloud of grasshoppers overflowing towards the two valleys. The strange, evil energy attacked first. The souls of the warriors who had their sea of consciousness affected flickered like a dying candle. The power of their entire body was restrained. Nearly 1,000 members of the Dark Spirit clan swarmed over the two valleys, attempting to slaughter. Warriors at the third sky of Spirit Realm like Xuemu, Ya Lai, Feng Biao, Li Zhangrong, and Ku Die had built dozens of defending barriers. People then saw numerous rainbows appear in the sky of the two valleys. They were interlaced together, layers upon layers as rings of energy rippled. Patterned green light shot out from the Dead Soul's evil lairs, shining on the defensive layers. Even the true God Realm warriors couldn't tear these layers of barriers. However, under the patterned green light, they were like an iceberg under the dazzling sunlight, slowly melting. All warriors in the valley were panic-stricken, their faces paled. Xuemu and the others were still strengthening the barriers as countless rare treasures shot to the sky, contributing their powers. The green light was increasing the strange, evil energy. Their barriers were like thin papers, about to be ripped off. Ready to fight. Ya Lai shouted, "We have to defend. Or else, everybody has to die. We need to resist for half a day and the rescue team will come. True God Realm warriors will help us. Everybody, we have to hold on until the end." Xuemu, Feng Biao, Li Zhangrong, and Ku Die assigned their people to put forth everything to withstand. The evil green energy continued to attack them. Eventually, the defensive barriers Xuemu, Ya Lai and the others had built were smashed down. Clansmen of the Dark Spirit clan started their invasion, officially entering the two valleys. The bloody war has begun. The weakest members of the Dark Spirit clan had Sky Realm cultivation base. Their soul power consisted of many kinds of strange, evil energies. Right when they got in, they started to use the erosive soul power that they understood the best to attack the warriors in the valleys. Warriors with Sea of Consciousness would be affected immediately as their powers would be oppressed wholly. On the contrary, warriors whose realms were lower than the Nirvana realm were unaffected by the green energy. They could still use their powers. However, warriors in such realms had limited powers. The clansmen of the Dark Spirit clan didn't need to use the erosive soul energy to kill them. The situation gradually favored one side. Members of the Dark Spirit clan had gained the upper hand right when they arrived at the valleys. They all looked cold and sinister, with intimidating power. Their souls seemed not to have a split. Shortly after they had entered the valleys, dozens of warriors were killed. Whenever a warrior died, his soul didn't scatter, but was dragged into the Dead Soul's evil lair. The Dead Soul's evil lair was like a soul-devouring beast that opened its giant bloody mouth to swallow the souls. After it had taken in one soul, the evil energy emitted from it seemed to be increased a bit. Strong warriors of the Dark Spirit clan jumped in and entangled Xuemu, Ya Lai, and the others. Although Xuemu and Ya Lai had the third sky of Spirit Realm cultivation base and countless secret techniques, under the attack of the Dark Spirit clan, they still struggled hard, revealing many shortcomings. Members of the Dark Spirit clan didn't have any treasures or weapons. Their bodies were their weapons. Engaging in the battle, their arms became as sharp and rigid as a blade. Their whole bodies were covered in armor, with intimidating defending power. Normal secret treasures couldn't pierce through that armor. Basically, they couldn't hurt the clansmen. Human warriors who came near them would be pierced through and ripped apart into small pieces. Within 15 minutes, the Spirit Potion Valley and Precious Tool Valley had lost 1/3 of their warriors. The ones who remained were all the strong warriors of the Radiant God Cult, the Devil Valley, and the Pure Land. Because of the treasures, profound techniques, and their will of steel, they were able to endure in the battle with the Dark Spirit clan. Run. 15 minutes ago, Ya Lai and Xue Mu told everybody to be persistent in defending. But now, they ordered to retreat almost at the same time. Warriors who were still alive all ran away, using their max speed to leave the two valleys. The Dead Soul's evil lair approached deliberately, hovering above the two valleys. Rings of evil green energy rippled densely like shower covering the two valleys. Human warriors retreated disorderly, didn't dare to engage in battle with the Dark Spirit clan anymore. They used their technique to flee away despite hurting their limbs. They just wanted to get away from this troublesome land as fast as possible. The streak of bloodlight flashed as human warriors used the treasures to run away from the two valleys. Members of the Dark Spirit clan spread out from the two valleys, chasing after those who ran away. A great rout. Warriors in the valleys couldn't stand even half an hour, fleeing away, leaving almost 1,000 bodies in the valleys. There were no living people in the two valleys now. A part of the Dark Spirit clan pursued the runaway, and the others stayed to search through the stores to collect something. The Dead Soul mountain range became a hunting ground where mankind was the prey. Shi Yang didn't know what was happening out there. Inside a remote mountain flank, he was concentrating to comprehend the mysteries of teleportation formation, trying his best to learn how to use the space power. While his soul consciousness drained fast, his understanding of the teleportation formation became deeper. Inside the blacksmith secrets of success, countless nodes were blinking inside the arrangement of the teleport formation. He gradually learned each part of it. All of a sudden, his hollow soul jumped into the central formation of the teleport formation like a beam of light. Countless symbols crossed his head. Some kind of understanding started to grow, multiply, and flood his brain as he was devotedly learning them all. All of a sudden, light dots moved in the array of the teleportation formation like living things, clear and smooth. Flows of soul consciousness scattered in that stream of light. Shi Yang used the soul consciousness as the route to cross the array like a shuttle to find deeper meanings. Inside the mountain, space around Shi Yang suddenly twisted. Space slits as thin as gossamer appeared around him, constantly swaying and twisting like snakes swimming. Multicolored light emerged from the space slits. Flows of bizarre space energy released from the space slits, entering his sea of consciousness, fusing with each strand of his soul consciousness. Shi Yang hadn't recognized it yet. He stayed still at his spot, as he continued to study the mysteries of the teleportation formation. He didn't know about the change in his sea of consciousness. The space slits around him widened, as big as a willow leaf. The power that twisted the space expanded from Shi Yang as the center. The Dead Soul's evil lair suddenly twisted in the sky above the Spirit Potion Valley. Members of the Dark Spirit clan packing the place inside all felt fear when they looked at that change happening to the Dead Soul's evil lair. Space cracks similar to that around Shi Yang appeared near the Dead Soul's evil lair. Shi Yang perceived the space power in his cave and unconsciously created a strange connection with the Dead Soul's evil lair. It seemed there was an invisible link between him and the evil lair via the space power that tied them together. Space cracks opened around the evil lair as the Dead Soul's evil lair was getting narrow. Members of the Dark Spirit clan gathered at the entrance of the cave were dismembered by the space blades, but they didn't bleed. More than 10 pagans of the Dark Spirit clan seemed to be cut off by numerous spaces. People then saw many limbs, heads, or even half a body in the entrance. Their other halves or limbs seemed to stay in another space, which they could never find back. All members of the Dark Spirit clan panicked. They worriedly flew outside the entrance, trying to get the pagans in the entrance out. The Dead Soul's evil lairs were the space cracks that led to the foreign land. It was formed by numerous stable space cracks, built by experts of the previous generations of the Dark Spirit clan. At this moment, the Dead Soul's evil lairs were pushed by the new generations of the Dark Spirit clan. They had used some secret techniques to break the space, combining 5 cracks into a big one. They didn't know that their deeds had made the evil lair extremely unstable. However, at the same time, Shi Yang was studying the mysteries of the teleportation formation and had accidentally urged the space power to form a connection with the evil lair, which was also made from the space cracks not far from him. This caused another change. Clansmen of the Dark Spirit clan were flustered. Pagans who were collecting something in the 2 valleys also got back while screaming. They stood and observed the evil lair from afar. No pagan dared to come near the entrance. The others who were at the entrance were struggling hard to escape. All members of the Dark Spirit clan, with or without a body, tried to get out. The dead soul's evil lair stopped releasing the strange green energy. The entrance of the evil lair shrank. 5 colored beams shot out, weaving in the entrance. Members of the Dark Spirit clan who hadn't escaped yet had their souls and bodies dragged into different space cracks under the twisting attack of the space blades. Inside the mountain flank, Shi Yang didn't realize anything as he was still sinking in his experience in the blacksmith's secrets of success. In his sea of consciousness, flows of sea consciousness and the space power were fused. Each strand of soul consciousness seemed to have the aura of space power. Gradually, his soul consciousness in the sea of consciousness seemed to turn into space slits too, appearing with a strange gloss. His host soul swayed, moving back and forth like a shuttle inside each strand of soul consciousness. It was then warmed and nurtured with the new nature and nutrients of soul consciousness. Slowly, his host soul was changed. Shi Yang was shaken violently. The space nodes of the teleportation formation in the blacksmith's secrets of success were shining brilliantly like stars. All of a sudden, the light they emitted became dazzling. The vague form of the teleportation formation in the blacksmith's secret of success became real. His hollow soul staying there, perceiving the wonderful characteristics of the formation, suddenly got covered by the teleportation formation. It then turned into a bunch of lights, flashed, and then disappeared. At the same time, the dead soul's evil lair above the Spirit Potion Valley had light flash in the entrance before it closed completely. Chapter 556, Virescent Soul Sea. Chapter 556, Virescent Soul Sea. Shi Yang felt that he was forced to divide into 2 persons. One was his real self, and the other was the hollow soul. His hollow soul did have a vision, intellect, and it could move too. Through the vague teleportation formation in the blacksmith's secrets of success, the hollow soul had gone somewhere, which ached Shi Yang's soul consciousness as he suddenly had a hallucination that his soul was split up. In the vision of the hollow soul, Shi Yang saw a vast area, where space seemed to be cut open by some kinds of sharp weapons, with many fine cracks. Those were the space slits. Each space slit led to another strange world or the turbulent void. All of them were mysterious and hard to measure. There was a sea made of floating souls in the foreign land. Those souls fluttered in unconsciousness, as if the nutrition in them was all absorbed. This sea was dark green, and he couldn't see where it ended. At the space slit above the sea, he could vaguely see many dead souls. The dead souls in this strange place looked weak. It seemed they were affected by the chaotic energy inside the space slit. They were struggling to get out of this space. This foreign land didn't have the sun, the moon, or stars. The sky was immensely gray and without clouds. Only the twisted energy flashed and then vanished like the shooting stars. Each dead soul here was trying to get out of the space. In the dark green soul sea, souls were floating around without the fluctuations of life. However, they had generated some kind of power that could urge the space power, which made the space slits shine like sharp sabers. The hollow soul hovered above the virescent soul sea and observed the situation down there. It didn't know what had happened. All of a sudden, from the bottom of the dark green sea, a flow of cold, evil will shot out. It seemed there was some sinister life that was swallowing all the energy of the bobbing souls to wake up. Shi Yang's hollow soul was also affected, becoming weaker. However, at this moment, a twisted shooting light beamed out from a space split near there. The hollow soul trembled, but then it was no longer affected. The hollow soul didn't have the sensing ability like its own soul consciousness. It couldn't sense what was happening in the bottom, as it could only observe the situation indifferently. Light flashed in the space slit near the sea. Strange, evil green energy constantly gathered into the sea. When 10 or more dead souls gathered, the energy was drawn and poured into the sea. Shi Yang's hollow soul observed everything attentively and quietly. It then saw more hiding dead souls, which were attacking the space slit. The hollow soul observed, then suddenly understood something. It was the dead soul's evil lair. The space slit where the dead souls gathered connected to the Dead Soul mountain range in the Grace mainland. Dead souls guarded the entrance as it was the main canal for the dead souls to travel to the Dead Soul mountain range. This finding scared him, and his face discolored. Shi Yang could never think that his hollow soul would be teleported into the dead soul's evil lair inexplicably while studying the mysteries of the teleport formation in the blacksmith secrets of success, which led to this strange world. In this world, the savage dead souls became the weak ones, struggling in pain. The dead souls were hiding themselves in the space slits, using the power of space distortion to reluctantly get rid of the pulling force from that virescent sea. Sometimes, he could see 1 or 2 dead souls dragged into the dark green sea when it changed its position, or the twisting force around it disappeared. Once the dead souls were pulled into the green sea, their auras disappeared instantly as their soul powers were snatched away. They became the stupefied dead souls in the quiet atmosphere of death. The dark green sea was trying to swallow all dead souls to strengthen and enlarge itself. Shi Yang was frightened. After observing for a while, he found the abnormal situation of this place, in which the dead souls were like lambs about to be slaughtered. This virescent sea had enslaved them. Flows of grey soul shot out from the evil lair one by one, discharging into the green sea. They were human warriors' souls. Another grey soul entered, also the soul of a human warrior. There were 10 of them in total. Once they fell into the dark green sea, those souls then soaked into the atmosphere of death. They went numb without any vitality left in them. Their soul powers then were taken. When human souls were pulled into the place, the suction force of the sea would reduce. Sometimes, it released some sort of strange and evil energy, pouring into the dead souls and strengthening them. This situation was bizarre. This virescent sea would pull and swallow souls, including the dead souls. At the same time, it could release a green energy that could improve the power of the dead souls. Shi Yang had watched everything for a while, but he still didn't know the connection between the dead souls and this green sea. He didn't know why the relationship between them was so strange and complicated. It seemed the green sea needed a constant supply of soul energy. If the dead souls gave it enough souls, it would gift them some energy to repay. But when it didn't have enough the soul energy, it would swallow the dead souls to supplement the missing amount. It seemed the sea's existence consumed soul power continually. While his hollow soul was carefully watching the situation there, space slits appeared more as if some kind of sharp weapon had cut the space open. Many beams of shooting light got out of the space slits, darting towards the hollow soul and getting into it. The hollow soul seemed to become a space where flows of space power were crossing through it and disappearing in just a blink. The host soul in Shi Yang's body. The teleportation formation in the blacksmith secrets of success glistered. Space twisted and changed. Inside the mountain flank, space next to him cracked. A light shot out from there, entering his sea of consciousness. It then started to fuse with his strands of soul consciousness. Changes happened quietly in his sea of consciousness. Strands of soul consciousness were fused with the space power. Now, they could cross the distance in space, running fast in his sea of consciousness. From him as the center, strands of soul consciousness amplified, then expanded to the outside world. It seemed a space crack had just appeared in his sea of consciousness. All of a sudden, his soul consciousness flashed and then disappeared into that crack. He didn't know where it had gone. Some kind of understanding suddenly stormed into his heart. The Dead Soul mountain range was a vast area. His soul consciousness glided through the region, searching every corner of the mountain range. A flow of soul consciousness came to the Spirit Potion Valley. The situation in Spirit Potion Valley and Precious Tool Valley projected in 3-dimensional images in front of his eyes. Bodies were piled on the ground. The dead soul's evil lair was floating above the valleys with its entrance close, but still emitting evil energy. Pagans of the Dark Spirit clan were watching the entrance of the evil lair anxiously while talking with each other using a strange language. Why did it turn into this? Shi Yang was terrified, suddenly nervous. He didn't know what happened, but from what he had seen in those two valleys, human warriors gathered there seemed to have encountered a fatal strike. The Dark Spirit clan had killed 2/3 of them. Strands of his soul consciousness with the space power were operating in the entire Dead Soul Mountain range. Many images were transferred to him. He saw so many human warriors running away. He saw dead souls with real bodies chasing after them and killing them. Li Zhangrong, Cherry, Lin Yhe. People he knew appeared in his sphere of consciousness. It seemed Shi Yang now had many eyes and could see everything happening in the whole Dead Soul Mountain range. Shi Yang was completely struck with shock. He suddenly realized that at his realm, when he released all of his soul consciousness, he could only cover some mountains in the Dead Soul Mountain range. He also knew that the peak spirit realm warriors could hardly send the soul consciousness to every corner of the Dead Soul Mountain range. The soul consciousness had a limit, and the Dead Soul Mountain range was extremely vast. Unless it was a true God realm warrior, it was difficult to cover the soul consciousness all over the Dead Soul Mountain range. The true God realm warrior also needed a long time to expand his soul consciousness to cover the entire mountain range. And his soul consciousness could cross the distance across space. It didn't need to be around him and extend from him. However, as long as his soul consciousness was released, it could appear at the corners near the border of the Dead Soul Mountain range. It depended on his thought, but it wasn't limited by distance as it could instantly appear even in a remote area. Space power. Only when he perceived the subtle mysteries of the space power could he gain this special effect. Shi Yang had a feeling. He calmed down his tense nerves and manipulated the strands of soul consciousness, which were extending too far from him. As his mind flickered, they changed. At the same time, his sea of consciousness had the second change. The space slit that had just appeared in his sea of consciousness disappeared all of a sudden. The sea of consciousness then shook violently as it became extremely unstable. Flows of chaotic space energy that he didn't know the origin of started to affect his sea of consciousness. He hurried to pull himself together. He didn't linger on his thoughts while using all means to steady his sea of consciousness. He released the flows of soul consciousness to project the real-time images. His host soul was moving back and forth like a shuttle through the images in his sea of consciousness, carefully checking each of them. Flows of chaotic space energy in his sea of consciousness condensed into a rope flying towards his host soul. His host soul trembled hard. In the sea of consciousness, his host soul was like it was suffering a fierce thunderstorm. The host soul was swaying. Flows of space energy were like hammers that could train the soul by pounding on his host soul, making his host soul adapt to the new space Upanishad that he had just learned. Shi Yang suddenly retreated all the strands of soul consciousness he had released. He then concentrated on feeling the space power and gave time to his host soul to adapt to the new situation. At the same time, his hollow soul in the foreign land was still under the attraction force of the virescent sea. All of a sudden, it plunged into the sea. When the hollow soul just soaked in the sea, a formidable soul erosive energy got activated. The hollow soul's will and the seal of the host soul were all eroded rapidly. Before his hollow soul was assimilated, he vaguely saw a giant shadow in the deep place under the dark green sea. That shadow was like a living creature, a seabed demon, which released the cold, sinister thought that affected the aura of the whole foreign land and changed some rules of nature. Boom! The hollow soul was eliminated, and Shi Yang's host soul was struck hard. The connection with the foreign land stopped instantly. Without the senses from the foreign land and his hollow soul, Shi Yang could see the change of his host soul clearer. While the space slits were wandering around him, Shi Yang calmed down his emotions and used the comprehending spirit change of the spirit realm, which depended on the host soul as the base to make another step in controlling and promoting power. He wanted to use the space power to enter the spirit realm. Before the transformation, he would use the space power to improve his body and train the host soul to sense further. Inside the mountain flank, space slits disappeared gradually. Shi Yang sat still, trying his best to feel the changes. He was neither happy nor angry, just focusing wholeheartedly to comprehend the new knowledge in silence. The entrance of the evil lair above the Spirit Potion Valley and Precious Tool Valley had been closed a long time ago. Now, it only had a green light shimmering. Space slits around it disappeared all of a sudden. Since the entrance was closed, dead souls from the outside couldn't enter, and the dead souls from inside couldn't get out. The dead souls' evil lair closed. It was still there, but it was gradually shrinking until it looked like a green dot. Under the fearful, attentive watch of many members of the Dark Spirit clan, after the entrance was closed, the evil lair turned into a flickering green light dot, which seemed extremely unstable, as if it could disappear at any minute. Please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,